than some high-level gameplay, especially featuring names like Reels coming back to play some Smite. I saw that Stealth was excited, and I'm pumped for this man, Met Yankee coming back.
Map
of course, Met
looks
goes to the signature Chiron, man. No one's playing Chiron in Season 7, but let's look at Season 8, shall we? I know the junglers are going to be a big deal here, AJ, because both Skili and Pon have been playing this map a whole lot. But let's take a look at where these gods are going to start, because starts are going to be different this time around. A lot more jungle camps to have the option to start at.
Correct. So this map is wider and longer, so it's larger in both directions. What that's done is created a lot of room for more interesting geometry. We've added a lot more choke points, as well as some more intentional open spaces to fight in the jungle, and some new XP camps, new objectives. There's new things all over this map. It looks like what we've got is, our junglers starting at the speed buff with the mages, which is, your pretty standard Season 7 start. That's often the way people approach a new map, is they're gonna use the meta that they're used to until they really start experimenting. These players are gonna experiment a bit, but they also want to win, right?
Oh, of course. These guys are competitive to the bone, and we'll talk about the starts in a little bit, I suppose, because I just realized we've got a lot of starter items to go over here. I don't know if we'll have a chance to touch all of them, but you've seen the spoilers on Reddit, particularly through Pon's fantastic
That's a cool-looking mid lane.
Bluestone Pendant, Vampiric Shroud, Death's Toll, all items that we're going to see in some form. Do you want to pick one out that we see here, AJ, and give us a quick rundown?
Yeah, so a lot of these starter items are going to be familiar names that you've heard in the past, but some of them are going to be brand new, which is, I think, really interesting. And it looks like we have a few players who have been attracted to a new item called Eye of the Jungle, which is an attack speed starter item that actually allows you to get free wards as you clear jungle camps. So we actually see Bastet as well as Cupid picking up Eye of the Jungle on the Chaos side. So we're seeing this flex into even non-jungle roles. We also see the Bluestone Pendant.
Yo, that's
Chiron
a jungle camp in the middle of the lane in duo. Weird.
Reel's looking for the first kill of Season 8.
Oh
Hazer
my
in trouble,
God,
but it's Yankee turning it around and putting Reels down. Welcome back.
Look at those camps. It's over in duo.
And look at this. Chaos takes down Skili in the mid lane. That's a rivalry.
Oh, I don't see Stealth though. He's got to grab his.
Gonna be able to answer back though, and now Chaos.
Look at that mid lane. There's like a massive wall on one side.
Two signatures for these two guys, and Stealth is kind of clowning on Chaos right now. I don't think it's gonna be. No, Chaos! You gotta hit the card! Okay, Exorcism gets the job done. Fireworks early on.
Look at that big old scorpion, dude.
At Eye of the Jungle. So this can be bought by either physical or
scorpion is
magical gods.
spooky.
As you mentioned, HP 5 attack speed, helping you deal with those jungle monsters, but
holy Erlang damage from Dimmy.
Those wards that end up. Seems pretty good against those invades, but I want to talk about what Hazer.
That's a tanky little scorpion right there.
Lane scorpions, and Pon, as always, as junglers always are, here to ruin the fun. Hazer in some trouble, but AJ, talk to me about these lane scorpions. What's the deal with these things?
So what we see over here is on the duo lane, there are two different spawn camps in the lane. There is actually a new type of jungle objective that can be directly contested at the same time you're fighting over minions and fighting and defend your tower. These scorpions are based off of Babylonian mythology. That's where we got the inspiration for their monster design. They are a minor objective worth some XP and gold, and they have a few unique features about them. Specifically, when you kill them, you will actually get a small healing aura, so you'll get some additional sustain even if you don't have any sort of like jungle related kill item. And there's two that spawn in the duo lane side, one a little bit favored to each side. However, there is also one in the solo lane that is placed directly in the middle between the two opposing lanes.
So does this
and I would note that mid lane actually does not have one.
Okay, all right, so not in
mid lane often has lots of farm already, right? So we were trying to spread more farm to the outsides of the map.
That's fair.
This is kind of calls back to the idea of a side jungle, but without all of the pathing.
It looks like the totem's still there. I don't think it's ripped totem. Looks like the totem's still over there. If you look at the map,
jungles coming back in
right there. Looks like totem's still here.
We'll rapid fire some questions about these scorpions.
On the opposite
I know
side.
my competitive-minded people in the chat are going to be asking. You mentioned a healing aura. Is that only in the circle where the scorpion spawned, or does it stick onto you kind of like when you walk through a tower after a totem of coup?
It is in the area, yeah. It's a relatively short duration, though. You essentially need to kind of be there as it's killed to be in the area to get the kill.
And so you got one in the solo lane, but it looks like it has not taken the place of Totem of Ku. Is it harder to take than Ku? Is it easier? How does it kind of scale throughout the game?
So the Scorpions are kind of a medium monster. I'd say they're not quite as even as hard as maybe the Alpha Harpy, right? There's something a little bit lower than that.
To be fair,
the
Alpha Harpy's
Totem
pretty hard.
Scales up so heavily in the amount of damage it can take, because it scales very differently than the rest of the things on the map. Jungle camps and minions, they scale in multiple factors, whereas the Totem, I believe, is just its pure health pool. So Totem is remaining in the solo, so you now have Totem and the Scorpion to contest. A notable exception is that the Jungle Shrine has been removed. One of the only things in the map that has been removed. Most everything else has been added.
No more Jungle Shrine.
From jungling a decent amount on this map, thank God, because I wouldn't have had time. I felt so busy constantly in the jungle because of Pon
new Shark and new map indeed, our Shark.
Near these speed buffs, there's now an additional XP Harpy camp, so you've got plenty to do as a jungler. Is Dimmy trying to all-in Deathwalker over here on this right-hand side. Deathwalker already using the ultimate as Dimmy has, and with lane control established by Dimmy, he's going to go straight over to this Scorpion. I want to take a look at one of these other starter items because I don't even recognize them with their new icons. MLC Stealth over something on
There's
this.
so much happening. Oh, that's a big gang.
In trouble, but Fields of Love
they didn't really get in on though.
A couple ultimates exchanged. That's all there is to that. Conduit Gem is the pickup. What does Conduit Gem do, and where do you see it fitting in the mid lane?
So this calls back to the idea of the Soul Gem, which was an item we had before, which is your more damage-oriented mage item, specifically on mages that have one heavy damaging ability that want to make sure they really get a lot of damage on their main damage source. So gods like Kukulkan and Scylla can use this very well, or even
this is gonna take.
This is
gonna take some time to learn some farming paths, you know?
Which is making its return, which is a high cooldown and a sustain, a little bit more like Mage's Blessing. So they're kind of the two different directions you could go with mages, or even the three different directions.
Yes, blessings are gone. They've completely redone starter items.
Vampiric Shroud, which is the hybrid tankiness lifesteal mage starter. And I think Zhonghui is just going to be a very strong pick in either mid or solo in Season 8 because of this changed items.
Doesn't surprise me with Chaos showing off on that Zhonghui pick that he's going to look strong as Skeely and Pon.
That's a low Skeely right there.
End up surviving, but
is that a Scorpion in the Fire Giant camp before the Fire Giant spawns? Do we see that?
I really feel that that's the best choice.
It does. There's a big old
Seems
Scorpion.
Like there's something else that is spawned over here in this Fire Giant pit. I'm looking at a greater Scorpion on Skeely's screen. A little bit different than those Scorpions that are spawning in lane.
Correct. So we have the Scorpions, the lesser Scorpions. We also have the greater Scorpions. They're definitely harder to take. They're larger. They actually have quite a bit of model and color changes to them. We have quite a fight breaking out here. I'll come back to them if you want to take a look.
No, it looks like Hazer was able to make a nice play. Oh, I don't know. Met Yankee maybe wanting a little bit more. Aegis from Chaos might dissuade this from continuing, but here, good abducts coming in from Hazer, and Met Yankee finds kill number 3.
I want to know about this.
For the order side, still pretty even. About 7.5 minutes in, but continue what you were saying about the greater Scorpion.
So greater Scorpions are going to take, probably 2 to 3 people to clear, or you'll have to wait a little bit later in the game until your Assassin or Hunter with some heavy damage and lifesteal can solo them. They're going to spawn inside of the Gold Fury and Fire Giant pits for the start. And Gold Fury and Fire Giant actually won't spawn until someone kills the greater Scorpions.
Interesting.
So when they get one kill on the Pon side,
that's interesting.
I gotta call out Dimmy on the rotations because I feel like I missed out on that part of my career. Dimmy near the back end whenever I started casting. Double kill for him coming out of solo as Reels.
Gonna
try and take it to Met.
So
Yankee. No hard bomb up in Met.
Won't spawn.
Did look at the explosion, but he's still a cool guy. I'm not gonna count against him. Couple kills going the order side. Sorry to cut you off there, AJ. Please continue.
Of course not. I want us to make sure we follow both types of action. And I am a little starstruck even myself here, getting to talk about the action going on here with names like Trix Tank and Deathwalker and Met Yankee. It's really awesome. So these greater Scorpions, once you start killing them, they actually change their spawn location to be deeper into the enemy jungle or allied jungle, depending on who captures them, which is a kind of a first for Smite. We've never had monsters relocate in the jungle. And killing the greater Scorpions has one special bonus feature reward to them as well, which is unique to Conquest now, where when you kill a greater Scorpion, it will empower the jungle camps on that quadrant of the map. So notice I said quadrant, split into 4 different areas. So if you're on the order team and you kill the Gold Fury Greater Scorpion, your purple and red buff will become enhanced, and the next time you capture your purple or red buff, you will get a more powerful buff on your god.
Oh, that's huge.
Very cool. So you can end up getting some really, really strong buffs. If I recall, things like blue buff giving an extra 10% CDR instead of just 10, you get 20%. At least that's what it was.
Oh, that's so important.
I'll ask you in a minute.
I'll need to check my notes, to be honest. There's so many numbers to remember on all of this. This will be listed out in the patch notes. Okay, here, I do have it here if we want to go through it, but we got some good action going on here.
Yeah, good dive
Pon trying to survive under tower.
Extra duper important.
Showing that he belongs here regardless of all my jabs at him in the lead up to this show. Good play there from the Khepri, who's up a level right now, and maybe in part because of this Watcher's gift. I know our support players in the chat, Hindu Man somewhere, very, very excited to see Watcher's gift returning.
That's interesting.
Is it exactly the same as it was back in the day?
Sentinel's gift.
There's a lot of similarities, but you know, Watcher's gift was actually quite similar to Guardian's Blessing. This is a pretty well-known starter for what people are used to. Though there are some very interesting starters for the supports that I'm honestly surprised we didn't see picked up today, given the pros' general love for economic advantages. We have another support starter called Benevolence that actually, you're going to be sacrificing some sustain and protections and damage in the early game, but it actually allows the support player to take a little bit less XP when sharing and increase the amount of XP that their allies get, allowing you to get a long-term XP advantage, which we found can be very powerful if you can survive the early game pressure that you lose out from taking that item.
Interesting.
The support items were really a lot of fun to experiment with, especially some of those.
Kind of sounds miserable for the support player, to be perfectly honest with you.
Stealth is a little bit of a brawl.
Can't wait to get yelled at for not picking up that item on support.
The map itself,
deep into the jungle.
Yeah, very deep. And let me tell you, I got lost in this jungle an awful lot whenever I got a chance to play. The walls feel much higher. The pathways feel much more narrow. Was that all intentional, trying to make the jungle feel a little bit more intimidating?
Definitely. So just some like more major features of the whole map. First thing, it's larger. Strategy is the key. So as you heard me mention, the Scorpions, their objectives are very strategic. They require you to make plays even after securing the buff. They make you, required to plan ahead. Your rotations are going to matter more. All of the jungle paths have changed. So, when you're first new to a map of this many twists and turns, if you're not someone who tends to watch their mini-map a lot, you definitely might get lost as you're still learning the layout. The order side is still Greek-themed, but it's been completely re-arted. It's now
he's living forever. Oh my goodness, good stuff.
Now takes the form of Tiamat's Babylonian Palace. Is now the Chaos side. The Chaos side, as you can see, the side difference is not as starkly different between
ganks seem really efficient.
On the previous map.
Like the map is so big, you can't just like see somebody getting ganked
certain players
and then decide to rotate over. You'll never make it in time,
on certain sides of the map.
You'll never make it.
Because the colors difference was
if you're not
stark.
rotating with alongside somebody, then you're just gonna have to just abandon.
But as you rotate,
you're gonna be like, yo, I'm not coming.
You're gonna see changes.
I'm never gonna make it there. I'm gonna go farm their jungle or something.
Wild and jungle feeling, and the plant life is that way, and the rocks and trees, etc. And on order side, you feel a little bit more white marble landscaped, oak trees, things like that.
A lot to ward.
We definitely have Babylonian architecture throughout the map. There are there's some Babylonian towers that are like tilted against each other on the solo side, and the duo side is a nice Greek temple. The map is in fact longer and wider. It is both. So there's a lot of really cool details throughout the whole map. The whole map also, as you might notice, the lighting is a good bit darker. That's also intended. We have found that a lot of people have been asking for our map to have just a little bit more sinister feel to it. A little bit more mystery and warlike approach to it. So the whole map is a little darker. We have what we call kind of the sunset lighting, where the sun is kind of as a silhouette behind Tiamat's palace.
Nice.
We have another big fight breaking out in mid lane.
Skilly gonna dive in, looking for more on Pon. Turns out set pretty good, and Pon on the receiving end of his own design.
Turns out
somewhere, some people on
pretty
Reddit
good. Yeah,
are laughing, I'm sure. Good little lead now for the order side developing. One of the pieces of the map that I really love is the purple. All the buff designs every year, I think really the zones that they are in go a little bit underappreciated. Just like this Gold Fury pit, as we see the Greater Scorpion in that zone taken out for the first time. So the Gold Fury doesn't spawn until that first Greater Scorpion is dead. Is that correct? Because it looks like Gold Fury is immediately there and ready to go. Correct,
yes. They actually took the Scorpion, I'd say, surprisingly late. Compared to the internal dev meta of which, you know, is not really a thing, but we'll see soon enough how the meta really evolves. Generally, we try to take, we've seen those taken a little bit earlier, so we don't want a lot of downtime in between those objectives. So the Gold Fury does spawn. You can see now on the mini-map, there's these white diamonds to acknowledge that those two buffs are enhanced, as well as when you walk by them. We're still iterating through a lot of this.
You can see it on the bottom left,
final in the bottom right. The environment team is still actively working through this week. They've been adding things to the map every day, more detail, more love. So by the time you really see it in live, it's going to even be up a notch from where it is now. But it looks beautiful already, honestly, and I'm so in love with it. It's just the beginning.
It really is awesome, and you see those extra little particle effects there. So Stealth probably getting an enhanced red buff based on that Greater Scorpion taken earlier. I hear chat is quite concerned about the Allied statue and where that has been relocated in the remodel of the Season 8 Conquest Map.
Let me just tell you that the Allied statue is bigger and better and easier to find than ever. It is residing safely within the Order base. It is directly behind the Order fountain. As players who spawn into the game, just do a 180 on the Order side and you will see the Allied statue. And it is in a beautiful like Greek city square lined by landscaping and even with some minion style human characters walking by to pay their respects.
Have no fear, Chad. We're you know, Allied is well taken care of.
Have no fear.
On the Season 8
it was featured in the cinematic that showed the in-game map art, not the super high def cinematic, but the one that showed the in-game stuff. That shows the Allied statue quite clearly. So if you want to get a good look at it back there we go. There's the shot of it. So this is as if you were standing in the Order base and you just turned around. That is what you would see right there.
Cool.
Amazing. Got it right there in the Order base. Love to see that. Absolutely. So I know I kind of hinted at it a little bit earlier, but we're not going to see them for a little bit. These new starter items have the next level that you can take them to, as Dimmy once again kind of going to work here on this rotation. A little bit behind an XP.
There we go.
Walker,
well,
certainly making his
we're
impact
waiting.
felt. Another fight deep in the Order side jungle as Dimmy trying to chase Chaos down. And a pin will get the job done for him. Nicely done there by Dimmy. 2 for 2 as Hazer looks likely to fall. These starter items that we've seen, a lot of times, you know, we make a big deal out of starter items because the early game is so important in Smite, and then eventually you sell it and you kind of forget about them.
Yeah,
but
so these starter items
going to be the case here in Season 8.
Love a lot.
Right, so every new starter item has 2 unique upgrades.
That's
the
interesting.
upgrades are designed for one of the upgrades to be like a stronger version of the starter item, and the other one is designed to be something very unique as a twist on the starter item.
Okay.
So these, though, are level gated. They are bought through normal gold, but they are level gated. So effectively, they just work like a 5th or 6th item build, like a tier 3 item would. And it just cleans up the flow and the user experience of playing with starter items in many ways, and it's been a really fun thing to play around with in testing so far.
Yeah, I've absolutely loved it, and we'll get a preview of that shortly.
It's definitely an interesting way to like make it so people don't feel bad about like knowing when to sell their, you know,
a hot button
about knowing when to sell your starter items and stuff.
Smite fans, once upon a time in the game, one of the most insane items ever created. Never really saw. Didn't get a chance to stick around a whole lot. As a nice job by the Chaos team coming in and getting this Gold Fury. Talk to me about Mannequin Scepter and how scared you were when Pon said he wants to put it in the game this year.
So Mannequin Scepter was almost a meme, a myth, a legend, right? It was an item from super early Smite. You have to be crazy. I've been playing since day 1 PC closed beta, and I barely knew what this item was because it was only on the PTS. It made such an impact on the PTS that it was immediately canceled and removed. Now, the core design goal of Mannequin Scepter, which makes it kind of terrifying, is that it adds bonus damage and a slow to your basic attacks.
Seems good. That seems real
Yeah,
good.
so that's what it used to do. It's been tweaked a little bit. It also should be noted that we've made starter items variable in cost. So some starters are more expensive than others.
That's
so
interesting.
That's just another way for us to do balance.
That's cool, actually. I like that.
But what Mannequin Scepter is going to do now is that
I
basic
like
attacks
more
are
expensive or more cheap starter items. I love
taking
that.
20 physical damage over 2 seconds.
It's good for
their
balancing.
attack speed reduced. And it's also going to do bonus damage to jungle monsters. So Pon has done a great job redesigning it to remove the slow, the most frustrating part, and replace that with an attack speed slow, as well as giving it a unique possible jungle application in bonus damage to jungle camps, making this item just essentially a really flexible, aggressive item that we could potentially see in all 3 physical roles. Really, we could see it in solo jungle or ADC, to be honest.
Interesting. Does it? So you could see it in hunters. Have you seen that in testing at all? Duo laners picking it up.
So we have tested that because we would kind of consider that possibly the break case, right? If the hunters are way too good beside this item, then we probably need to adjust it to be.
Vamp Shroud looks pretty hot.
Because they're probably the scariest one to give constant bonus damage on their basic attacks, right?
Right.
But there's certainly some downsides to taking it. The hunters aren't going to use the bonus damage to jungle camps quite as much. Hunters are going to lose out on a lot, literally all of their sustain and lane to do such a thing. So we believe it's possible, but it is kind of risky.
Risky for sure. Is a nice little dive happening here.
I'm also a little bit curious to see how long this game goes,
and they'll find
how long is this game going to last? With nobody knowing the meta,
On the map. We haven't gotten a chance to talk too much about it. Hazer's on his way to the Chaos side gate that you can find on the map. With the new area, you can see it a little bit on the mini map. There's a little bit of an area that you can walk through coming out of your base to get into the jungle. Tell the fans at home about this new base gate that they're gonna have to worry about.
So this is our first experiment with dynamic geometry on a Smite map, and what that means is walls literally opening and closing to allow players through the space. Huge cuckoo ult from MLC Stealth. Love to see it.
Well, that's what you're going to see every time the man locks in the Cuckoo Con. That's just kind of how he does it.
I'm confused by what that means.
Down Chaos, ruining MLC Stealth's fun. A double kill for him and Dimmy.
I saw the gate thing, but I don't understand what that means, though.
Coming from Reels. Okay, finally, I was going to say someone's got to be level 20 by now. Deathwalker is, and he has upgraded his starter item. Remember, he had that Eye of the Jungle earlier on. If we could get Doug to...
There's a door
Which upgrade did you choose, I wonder?
Protector of the Jungle. So these are pretty beefy stats.
Those are beefy stats. Wow.
35 physical protection, 35%.
Dude, that is the protector of the freaking jungle right there, y'all.
15% power and 15% protection.
Wow.
This is one that I really liked whenever I was testing it.
They're clearly playing into the Fire Giant Gold Fury fights, right? A lot of our fights at the end game take place in where we are right now, where the players are right now.
That guy's the protector
We've
of
heavily
the freaking
redesigned
jungle.
the geometry in this area to allow for a little bit more openness, but then these really intense choke points right after you exit the area. We've also seen the lead change. We saw Order running the entire early game with a small gold lead, and now Chaos has answered back after that last fight and then taken the Fire Giant.
Yeah, Chaos diff so far. I mean, 8-4-4, top of the player damage. You were saying that John Kui is going to be stronger.
Doesn't look like the Fire Giant Gold Fury Pyromancer have really changed.
Quick caveat, though, that poor MLC Stealth coming in. He tweets that he hasn't been playing. It's been a while since he's played a competitive Smite game. Chaos is in these play tests, sweating every day. You know what I mean? It's kind of rude of us to put him up against Stealth.
That is true. I mean, Skilly has been an absolute force in the playtest as well.
Oh, yes.
So I feel like the teams are pretty balanced. I feel like we've seen a close match so far. I feel like it's highlighted the map well. I feel like in our dev testing, we've had a lot of lead changes. Now, a bigger map, more jungles, more things to take. It can be possible to extend that snowball, but there's also more ways to get back in the game, and some of the more dangerous geometry will do that.
So how do you get those open?
Here. Now, this is our first test in dynamic geometry, which means those are like actual walls. They interact like the jungle walls would. But if you walk across that circle pad, the doors will open for you and you can exit your base cleanly. This gives you a really quick path from your base to the jungle. Really nice for junglers. It saves you a lot of time and a lot of other trips.
Interesting.
But it also allows for some very interesting siege mechanics because those jungle doors, they do not care about which player team opens them. If you are able to leap over the wall or get around a Phoenix, you can stand on that and open the door for the enemy team to flood into the base around a Phoenix. Or if you're trying to defend the base and you step out too far, you can't go back in the door. Someone's got to let you in.
Okay,
really
so turns out Protector of the Jungle looks pretty good because Deathwalker 15% stronger in the jungle, just one shot, 2 people back to back, and that's exactly where he wants to be taking those fights. Chaos side really making use of this Fire Giant that they've gotten for themselves. Great initiation by Deathwalker.
Literally
you mentioned people coming in on these sieges through the doors, and that has been so hard to deal with in the games that the casters got a chance to play. I mean, if you can get in something like in this game, Trix Tank hopping over the wall with the belly flop and then just standing on the pad and letting people through felt very, very hard to deal with.
It looks like the Chaos team's not going to need to do that here. They're just going to take the middle Phoenix.
This is fascinating.
It is an additional way to break into a base. It is intentionally designed like that. We found that throughout the season 5, 6, and 7 map, and even some of the matches we've been watching more recently, it's a little too easy to make a stand at your Phoenix.
It's really easy to make a stand at your Phoenix.
Teams there for a little too long. So we wanted to provide an additional way to let you attack that enemy base.
It all looks very opened up around that too.
Expending a leap to jump into the enemy base. If people are quick and catch you off guard, they can picking a support first is a very common pro tactic already. That's an easy way to lose out on a fight. We also have some additional balance mechanics around it, and specifically that we're going to be applying the Invader's Curse to people who do open the doors that way. So there is going to be a little bit of a booby trap, as you might say.
Interesting. Okay, I was gonna say, because that felt so good. I mean, we had people chalk torrent, throw their axe over as chalk and instantly torrent through, or even blink if you don't even have a leap, just blinking over and getting yourself on that button. So you get Invaders cursed for doing that now, so certainly something to worry about. Okay, here we go. I was hoping that people would start updating their starter items. Blood-Soaked Shroud. This is upgraded from the Vampiric Shroud. 75 magical power and 40 physical protection.
This can stack infinitely.
15% lifesteal, and damaging an enemy with an ability restores 12 health, 6 mana, and provides some lifesteal stack. So this
starter items are
that last
hot.
bit there, Aggro, is the most exciting part.
Wait, this can stack indefinitely? What?
This allows you to reach the hard cap of lifesteal if you just stay in combat long enough.
So you really felt like you couldn't get through with an Anubis buff, but maybe we can sneak in a lifesteal stacks indefinitely sort of item past us, huh, AJ? That's how you were going to do it this year?
Oh my goodness.
This was a Pon design entirely, I assure you.
Throw him under the bus. I see it.
The idea with the starter item upgrades is that we did push for some really unique effects. They're gonna all look very strong compared to each other, which we believe is gonna keep the gods and the classes fairly balanced because everyone will have access to it. Oh, here we have an enemy incursion through the base gates.
Yeah, walking right in through the base, and MLC Stealth is like, guys, there was a wall there a second ago. Really good ult coming from Hazer, and that's actually gonna matter. Looks like the fountain is much further back this year, AJ. From where it has been.
The map is just bigger, so everything's a little further away from itself. That includes Phoenix to Fountain, and then towers distance between each other. There's
a way bigger distance between all that.
Yeah.
It's already so hard to make those calls to rotate sometimes to kill a jungle or boss in time before the enemies get there. It's going to be a lot of learning to get that down again on the new map for sure.
Cool, though.
It looks like Order here has done a successful defense, is now countering back, pushing back.
Heard it here first, folks. Going through the gate on the offense, bad, because we saw it once and it didn't work that well for the Chaos squad. Trix Tank now just killing him a formality. Order side has the option to go for that Greater Scorpion.
I like the map, man.
Right next to Dimmy, a little bit behind him. I'm
gonna be honest with you, I like it.
In between
the map's big.
And the purple.
Rotations are gonna be hard but poignant.
Around the map where that
I like the new stuff. I like that there's new map interactions, walls that open, ways to buff your buffs, placeholders for gold fairies and fire giants before they spawn, and new things to farm and lots to learn.
Looks like Chaos waited to complete it.
I like it, man.
True 6th item. Where do you think we'll see the vast majority of players upgrade those starters?
I think it's going to heavily depend on the build and the class. Like, if you're doing something like the Hunter attack speed build where you kind of want all of your pieces and parts, you might delay your starter item. You might even still sell your starter item, right? But the options are pretty interesting and attractive to most builds. It's definitely going to depend on the player and on the build and on what you're dead set on, honestly.
All right, Chaos is just too good, man. I mean, we should have known from Season 2 Worlds that you can't be doing objectives with Chaos Jungle on the map. He waltzes in and stole that Fire Giant away from the Order side.
That's the game, but it's a good game, like 30 minutes.
That's just what Chaos is going to bring to the table.
30 minutes is a good game,
Watcher's Gift gets upgraded, and while other starter items are level 20 gated, the support starter items are a little bit different, understanding that Guardians don't always get to level 20.
Smart.
Correct. Those can be upgraded at level 17.
Okay, so now
as opposed to 20.
Tank
so only there's essentially three items roughly per class. So that's 15 starter items that each have 2 unique upgrades. So it's a lot of items.
Wow.
And of course, many of these items though can flex into multiple roles too. So when you really look at your options, you have many more than 3 options. But the true support 3 starter items all can be upgraded early to make sure that supports get the chance to make that decision. We also looks like we're looking at Mannequin's Hidden Blade.
Very, very cool. 75 basic attack only
15% of their current health has physical damage in their slot, but 20% for 5 seconds. Fun.
If you haven't hit
Dude, these starter items are fried. I love it.
So
these starter items are all busted. But if they're all busted, then it's great, you know? It just means that starter items are important. But you know what that means? It means you got to get those levels. Because those items are level gated, it means that farming XP is going to be super important this season because of how good those items are.
Definitely, it is, and it's very different than the traditional mannequins, which is generally like dot damage, which is what you're going to see on the other option. If you upgraded mannequins into mannequin mace, you're going to see the dot damage kind of tick up.
Now, don't forget, everybody, you will be able to get a full look at all of these changes, all the items, everything like that at the Season 8 Patch Notes show. That's coming up right after this, but we got to wait until one of these teams is able to find the Titan, and right now it's looking good for the Chaos side. All 3 Phoenixes
good for the Chaos side.
As Bluestone Baruch comes through now for Met Yankee, another completed
enemies hit by a damaging ability taking an additional 25, 7.5% of their current health as physical damage over 2 seconds max and 2 stacks.
Plus 7.5% of their current health. So this is just an example of one starter item that is just taken up to 11 from their base form.
Correct, yeah.
GG's. Good game.
There's a lot
very
of
excited
items.
to actually see the patch.
They're hard to go through. There's so much on this map. I can't go through all of it. It looks like we're going to have a Chaos victory here.
Yeah, Chaos team just too strong, and I mean that both
going
in the
for
sense
the troll kills here.
Well, you have to. I mean, both Chaos and Chaos
right
end up being too strong in this one. 9, 4, and 8. The final
hasn't even been the patch notes yet, dude. Not yet.
Deathwalker also popping off over there in that solo lane, but a lot of fun getting a chance to watch it with you, AJ. I know there were a million things that I wanted to bring up that we didn't get a chance to because of everything else.
I'm sure there's going to be a 5-minute break and then patch notes or something.
To see the full Season 8 patch notes, is there anything you want to leave some parting wisdom with them for a little bit?
I have to say, I just have to give a big thanks to the entire Smite development team, all of the design team, the environment team, the art team, all of our teams. Everybody has been working so hard. You know, you see me up here getting to talk about this stuff, but the credit should not go to me. It needs to go to the people on our teams, the people at every level of Hi-Res Studios that have worked so hard all year, having to move home, having to go through all this crazy stuff in the news to still have the best year ever for Smite. I'm so proud of our team. Give those people the love. Follow them on Twitter. Check them out everywhere you can. We have talented people all over the studio, and this is the culmination of it here with a brand new Conquest map, something that other games really don't do. Redesigning their whole main competitive mode. We do that because Smite players love the action, they love the change-ups, and they love the new art.
Biggest of retweets from me. The whole Hi-Res and Titan Forge teams absolutely killed it this year. Cannot wait to see it in its entirety. You don't have to wait very long. As you said, PTS coming up very soon this weekend, but also the whole Season 8 update notes is coming up next. So make sure you're staying tuned. Thanks for the time, AJ, and thanks everyone for watching our PTS little bit of a show match here for Season 8. Hope you enjoyed the Old Guard match. Stay tuned. Season 8 patch notes coming up.
We're so close. Patch notes are coming. They're coming. We've been waiting all day. Finally. It's been a long, grueling day. But we're getting it. We're finally getting the patch notes, folks. Let's go. Let's go. Your boy is tired. But it's time. Need more G Fuel. Need more primes. It all looked cool, man. It all looked cool. Obviously, we're gonna have to actually play on it at some point, you know, but it all looks fun, man. All looked fun. It's gonna be on PTS before this weekend. It's gonna be on PTS today. Today. Assuming it doesn't get delayed.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Smite Season 8 update show. I'm Isaiah, your host for today, and today is a special day. We got so much to go over. Got the new Conquest Map, all the 8-1 balance, a bunch of new skins and features, and of course, with me to break everything
Give it to me,
down,
Isaiah.
I've got my buddies from the design team.
I'm ready.
Got Ajax and Pon with me. First of all, how you guys doing?
Good. Yeah, doing well.
All right, well, we have got an absolute ton to go over, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And we're going to start off with the Conquest Map. I know we just had the awesome show match where we gave everybody their first look at Season 8 Conquest, but we definitely want to take a little bit of time to go over some of the highlights for Season 8 Conquest. So, AJ, I'm going to pass it along to you. What's going on with Conquest? Where are we at? And how did we get there? Kind of set the stage for us.
So, this is a brand new map, like the thing we did in Season 5, completely new Conquest Map, big change. What you're going to notice first off is the Chaos Base. We can say goodbye to Hades' Skull Castle, RIP for Hades, but it has been replaced by Tiamat's Fortress. Which is really exciting. The Babylonian Pantheon finally coming to Smite, as we saw in the amazing cinematic trailer we had revealed earlier in this event.
The trailer was really
absolutely
cool.
Beautiful. We wanted to make the Babylonian launch a really memorable launch. It's a very well-known pantheon, you know, one of the oldest mythologies in the world, and it's been requested for a long time in Smite. So here it is going to be immortalized in the Conquest Map, not just in the gods that are going to be arriving in the Pantheon, but in the map itself. So really what we are going for is a little bit of a story transition from the year of Cthulhu into the year of Tiamat. Cthulhu was wreaking havoc with our gods. He was stealing their worshippers, driving them insane, turning them against each other. Things were looking bleak. The world was ending. But then Tiamat arrives and uses her powers of creation to reborn the earth, just remake it. And in that process, she banishes Cthulhu back into the depths or into your queues if you do not ban him.
So you're saying Donsborough wasn't enough?
Yeah. Donsborough didn't even attempt to stop Donsborough.
For sure. He was just there to chill, drink some sake, and make some money. That was it.
He did hand out some important life lessons to Tsukiyomi, but now we're moving on to the next year, and that is the story. Tiamat has set up her base suspiciously close to Mount Olympus here, just across the Conquest-sized jungle, conveniently, away from Mount Olympus that will still be representing the Order side, but a completely new reconstructed Mount Olympus from scratch, along with a completely new jungle and everything that you're going to see in these patch notes.
Gotta see these stats.
For sure.
And stuff,
like I said earlier, we're not going to deep dive into it just because we had the awesome show match earlier, but we did just want to hit some highlights here. So we're going to talk about the new layout. Of course, bigger map both ways, right?
You know, we get this request every time we start looking at the Conquest Map. People just want the map to be bigger. They want rotations to matter. The map size creates a whole lot of gameplay strategy, and it also gave us a lot of room as a design team to make different types of geometry, different types of jungle path. So really, we were happy to follow along. So the map is wider and longer. We have the jungle completely new. We have a lot of really interesting spaces in the jungle, and when you look at the mini map, you'll recognize it, that there are some more specific open areas to fight in, and then there are other areas that are much more narrow pathed, and that's to create a whole lot of variance in the different types of fights and different types of team fights. Depending on the location, you can have a really different experience on this new map. And we're also, of course, going to have
places where you're like,
new jungle camps and new camps in different locations and just new camps in general.
Yeah,
or you're like rocking on Queen, you're like,
brand
oh,
new
I'm
map,
cut
completely
them off
new
so
art
hard,
set,
you know?
Based off of Babylonian Pantheon and mythology. It looks super awesome, but we've also got some new NPCs, and I know you were super excited about the new scorpions that have been added to the map. You want to talk about the lesser and greater scorpions really quick?
Yeah, so we have the Chaos side completely rebuilt in a new theme. The whole map is completely rebuilt, but that's a brand new theme. The Order side, Mount Olympus. Order and Chaos towers are new. Chaos Titan is new. Chaos minions are new. The Scorpions are our new jungle monster. They have two versions. There's the lesser Scorpions and the greater Scorpions. We'll talk a little bit more about their mechanics in a minute. And we also have a lot of our favorite jungle monsters from the previous seasons will be reprising their roles. Red buff, purple buff, blue and speed buff, not yellow buff, obviously. Will be maintaining their art from the previous years.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the scorpions a little bit. Let's start with the lesser scorpions and talk just a little bit about their mechanics.
All right, now we're doing something pretty crazy in this map here, Pon. We're doing a few really interesting objectives added to the map. We're trying to look for ways to layer on some complexity into Conquest, and one way we've done this is through the new lesser scorpions, which are the first jungle camp that spawns inside of lanes. So on the outside of the duo lane and the solo lane, on the outer edge, you will see these lesser scorpion camps.
They're basically like the crabs.
That you will actually be able to attempt to take or steal from each other while you're still essentially standing in the same place where you can clear minion waves, right, Pon?
Yep, exactly. They're right next to it. People can fight over them. People can try and burst them down, but be careful if you try and burst them down while the opponent's around. They might try and sneak it from you if they're so inclined.
So these provide golden experience when killed, but they also have some additional new rules, which are very interesting. The first of which is when their health bar is depleted, they are not immediately slain. They go into a down state where they have to require a certain number of individual hits to finish them off. So this is to add even a little bit more attention and strategy behind who's going to secure the camp. They also provide a localized healing buff to the team that slays them. So if you do capture them, it is a way to regen a little bit of HP, which kind of contrasts nicely with the way like the totem can restore mana. So those are the lane scorpions, the lesser scorpions.
Yep.
But we also
let's talk about the big boys.
Big boys. Yeah.
These spawn in the jungle.
These are extra important.
And they have a lot of interesting mechanics working with them. So at the beginning of the match, they will spawn in the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant pit. And these monsters have one major new feature, which is they are our first jungle camp that changes its spawn location. So when they will first spawn in the Gold Fury and Fire Giant pit. At the time they are slain, is when the Gold Fury and Fire Giant can spawn. If you have to kill these before you can get the bigger bosses to spawn. Once they are killed, they will actually relocate to a different spawn point, which is really interesting. And if you kill them, you'll get some experience in gold, but you'll also get a bigger bonus, which is the jungle camps on your side of the map will drop even stronger buffs after you kill these scorpions.
They're going to be so important. Think red buff,
so
but stronger.
A lot of interesting details here.
Yeah, I know. Something that we've never done before. I'm definitely looking forward to how people contest these new greater scorpions in the jungle and how it's going to sway the tide of the game there. But another thing that we've never done before that I definitely want to talk about are the all-new base gates and Conquest. AJ, what's going on with these new gates on the outside of all the bases?
So this is our first dynamic geometry. This is something that people have been asking for years, and we're really excited to try it. And it's something we're planning on experimenting, and paying attention to throughout the year.
They're very scary.
We are adding gates to the bases. So when you are in your order or chaos base and you're leaving the base, you will be able to walk out of a gate that opens and closes. It's actually it's a blocking area until you walk through it, and then it opens up. It has a opening pad on the interior side of the gates that you have to step on to walk out. So if you walk outside, you are trapped outside when the door shuts behind you. Now, this has a lot of interesting twists and turns to this mechanic. So specifically, we wanted this to be, one, a much more convenient way to get from your base to different parts of the map. It feels so good, Pon. You're my jungler. Tell me how good this feels when you're leaving the base.
Oh yeah, that's at least 6 FPS.
I mean, even in live, when I am running around, because I've been playing on this map for a while, I actually try to run to the gate area because it's just so convenient to get to your speed buff. It's so convenient to potentially rotate to the other lanes. It's just such a nice path to have that I don't know what I was doing without it before.
So that's the first purpose of these gates.
Next
now,
slide,
the second
please.
purpose of these gates is to add a really interesting twist on Phoenix and base sieges. So if you're a defender or an attacker, you can now utilize these gates as a way to attack the team in other ways. If you're defending, you can flank this other team as they're attacking a Phoenix more easily by going through the doors, but you need to be careful or you might not be able to go back in the way you came from unless your teammate is there to open the door for you. If you're a attacker, you can camp outside those gates and see if anyone wants to open the door to try to take a look, and when the door is open, go ahead and flood their base and actually get into the Titan and Fountain area without killing any Phoenixes or taking any Phoenix damage. And we've taken this even one step further. Those doors are not that thick, so they can be leapt over or blinked or teleported over. So actually, as an invader, you can leap over the door and step on the pad to open the gate for your team to flood in. There will be penalties applied to people enemies who invade the gate in this way. There's going to be a debuff area. The Invader's Curse that will slow you and debuff you in other ways, but it is a really interesting risk-reward way to attack the base in a whole
It's gonna be really fun.
Definitely looking forward to this. I know you guys have been having a ton of fun with this new mechanic. AJ's been going off the walls about it. Super excited to have this in the Season 8 Conquest map. But I think the thing that I am most excited for, is something that we may not have talked about a little bit earlier. And I know AJ has been
deja vu or something.
Time. It's the idea of a living, breathing Conquest map. AJ, break this down for me and tell me what we're going to be doing this season.
So this is probably the coolest feature of the whole map, and that's that it's a feature that we haven't implemented yet. It's the future. Conquest, we get a new map in Conquest 8.1, and in the history of Smite, we would get a new map every now and then, right? You got a new map in 5.1, and then years before that in 2, 3, and 4. So it was a long time between maps. We are changing our process a little bit here, where this year we are committed to updating the Conquest map 3 more times throughout the year. Now, these are not going to be full map overhauls.
That's so
but
cool.
We're going to take the 8.1 brand new map, and we are going to make thematic art and design changes to it that introduce new gameplay, introduce new artistic changes to the map, and we're going to do that throughout the year. Each of these updates is going to have a specific theme that is tied to the Smite storyline and to the gods that are launching around the time that the Conquest updates are launching.
For sure.
And each update is going to bring a different experience. And I can't give away too much about what we're going to do at each update, but we're going to be investigating things like changing geometry, changing paths. We're going to be looking into new objectives, something like our expanding the functionality.
Stuff like that would keep the player base way higher.
So throughout the year, instead of just,
if they implement it and implement it well, that could literally bump up the player base for Smite all year long.
We're telling you
right now
that we're going to see artistic and gameplay changes to the Conquest map specifically multiple times throughout the year. And then, of course, that is in addition to balance, which we'll do to the map. We'll be adjusting numbers, health values, damage values, and stuff like that. Golden experience. We'll still do that on a every update basis. But at those quarterly updates, more changes to Conquest.
Super exciting. All my theory crackers out there, go back in the VOD and take a screenshot of that teaser image and start making your predictions. It's going to be super awesome.
Yep.
But another thing that's super awesome, as we move away from Conquest, but still Conquest related, some of the new player experience updates that we've got going on. And the first one is actually going to be a new feature in Season 8, the Conquest guided system. And I'm going to leave it to AJ again. Take it away.
Guided
Don't worry,
system.
Pon took lead on the balance and the items, so he'll be leading for the rest of the meeting. Or the rest of the
25 pages to go through.
Oh, God.
See how that goes.
This is part of our commitment to Conquest, but it expands a little beyond that. It is for new players in general, but it's not just for new players. This is something that we wanted to add for a long time. Better ways to learn the Conquest map. There's no better time to learn Conquest than when it's a brand new map, because everyone is learning together. You're not going to be that far behind. There's a lot of different things to learn. So even the people who are Conquest veterans will be taking time to learn the map. Now, what we're adding is a new system called the Conquest Role Guides. This is a new type of tutorial, completely unlike anything you've seen in Smite before. What it does is will match up with your assigned role from the match lobby, which you'll now be able to trade with other players. We'll get to in a second.
Cool.
And when you load into the map, it will actually show you sort of quest waypoints in the world space to guide you to your starting jungle camp, to your proper lane, and to the your jungle camps nearby your lane when they respawn, as well as towards objectives like the tower and the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant as the game goes on. So this isn't a tutorial where you're just like sitting in a sandbox just waiting for step by step and like, okay, I press W, now do the next thing. This is actually a guided system that overlays on top of PvP matches.
Interesting.
So you can turn this on optionally when you're playing Conquest against other players or when you're playing Conquest in co-op mode.
That's cool.
So players who want to learn Conquest, you can turn this on during co-op mode to get just a feel for it. And this system is designed to be helpful and give you extra information that you could already get from your minimap, or you could already know from watching pros or watching streamers or just from playing the game a lot.
That's cool though.
But it gives you some extra reminders for these things, and that's going to be a great way for new players to learn.
Good.
And we're also going to be able to update this throughout the year, so we can try to have every update reprogram the system so that it shows you exactly where to go at the beginning of the game match like each meta start throughout the year. We might be a little behind the pro meta, those big brains coming up with new strategies all the time, but we'll be constantly upgrading this throughout the year and making sure
that's great for new players trying to get into Conquest and stuff.
Experience to follow through on.
Conquest is already hard to get into, and this map is not going to make it any easier. So
it's something that players have been asking for a long time. Just an easier entry point into Conquest, and starting off on Season 8 with a brand new map is a perfect opportunity for this. And you touched on a little bit earlier about trading roles, but we've also got some match lobby changes coming in. What's going on with those?
So now you'll be able to trade your assigned role in the lobby, just like you would offer a god trade in Assault or Ranked. There will be a UI element that pops up.
Great quality of life change.
Trying to initiate the trade with can choose to accept or decline it. We have some additional rules in there to make sure there's no spamming and stuff like that, but you'll want to make sure you get your actual roles sorted out in the lobby instead of just doing it verbally. That is going to be a lot easier for console players, and it's going to be better for our data tracking and for if you're using the role system and the recommended item system and other things like that that are now going to be working more smartly off of role. You're going to want to actually trade your role instead of just say you're going to trade roles.
Cool.
We're also adding some other things to the match lobby and to elsewhere in the game to help new players find existing tutorial features. So we had some videos in the game already that are really helpful. Now you'll be able to access those easier when you're browsing your game modes.
Okay.
We also have all of these new systems to help new players, like the role guides, as well as the recommended item updates, and we're doing a lot of other changes to things like the help tips, which are these pop-ups that will tell you what things are as you walk around the map. A lot of those are being updated, so we added a new button in the match lobby called Guides, where you can click that and kind of toggle on or off the different type of new player help features.
These are great features. These are great.
You lock your god. So maybe if you get a role you're not used to,
I love this.
Okay, Guides on. Like, okay, I play my role all the time, I can turn it back off. You can also turn it on or off in the middle of the match. So
These are great
a lot more
quality of life changes for a MOBA
without sticking them in some boring like step-by-step sandbox, right?
Yeah.
This is ways like
awesome.
that we can give you a little bit of extra information as you're actually playing Smite.
For sure. All right, and then last but not least, you kind of touched on it, but recommended items. We're making changes to the recommended item systems to tie that into the new kind of role overhaul that we're doing. And
help more people get into the game, man. Now. It's wonderful.
Well, there's a few big changes here to talk about with recommended items. One that's funny is we changed recommended items to be more data-driven last year, and ironically enough, that caused players to actually lose a bit of trust in the system, because Smite players play heavily off of word of mouth. They play off of expectations. We're following Weekend's build site. You know, there's a lot of pros out there, Final K's guides, but the stat system wasn't necessarily showing the same type of items we would expect. So what we have done here is made a couple changes. One is that your recommended items will now change much more intensely based on the role that you had assigned to you in the lobby.
Okay.
So Changa Jungle is going to get a very different recommendation than Changa Solo, which was something that previously wasn't accounted for very well. We are also going to be changing our data. So it's still going to be data driven, but we're going to be changing the data system to work a lot more off of more popular items. So we really want the builds that people see from the recommended items to match the more expected meta builds. When we were going just off of stats, we would get a lot of strange builds off of players who were doing more unique things, right? So essentially we just opened up the data set there to get something that players are going to expect. It's going to be a lot better for new players. And then the other big change is we're now allowing you to enable and disable the auto buy system mid-match. Previously, once you turn that off, it was off for the whole game.
Okay.
But now you can toggle it on or off. So say you had a build you liked, pre-saved, but it didn't have any anti-heal in it. So you can turn it off, buy that Divine Rune, and then turn it back on.
Interesting.
And it'll just continue down the priority list of what you
set. Okay, that's cool.
That's a really nice user quality of life feature. Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for some of the kind of the new player systems and guides and stuff like that.
So far, these are all great, man. These are all great changes.
Time to shine. We are moving
it's my turn
on to balance.
All right, here we go.
And we're going to kick things off with starter items. So as you guys may have heard, we're overhauling the starter item system in Season 8. And I will pass it along to Pon to give us an overview of what's going to be happening.
Yeah, so something that's really exciting is we're actually bringing starter items back. Blessings have previously been here, and they actually served a pretty good role of kind of teaching you what a role could be, right? Like, you got the jungle one, it caused you to kill jungle monsters, but it removed a lot of the flexibility players had previously when they could build their starter items. Like, a Bluestone Wukong was very different from, like, a Death Toll Wukong, where you could use a lot of poke versus actually trying to get in there and brawl. And so now all these starter items are coming back to kind of reintroduce that depth that you can have when you want to pick your character the way you want to at the start of the game. With this, there's going to be 16 new starter items.
They're only 1,500 gold for the rank up at level 20. You just got to get that 20.
Pick it up. That's your starter that you'll have for that game. Once you leave the base with it, that'll be the only starter you can pick that game. But at level 20 or 17, if you're getting this,
you only can get one.
You can actually upgrade them to one of 2 unique tier 3 upgrades.
You only can get one.
So let's say you pick Death Toll, for example. You can upgrade that to kind of a level 20 version of what a Death Toll could be if it was made as a tier 3 item.
Interesting.
Or you can get one of the upgrades that drastically pivots what that item does and its effect to do some really kind of wacky things with it.
Okay.
We're pretty excited to see what people actually do with this, but these tier 3 kind of starter decisions, you have to make a decision at the start of the game, how you're going to want to play, and also that decision that you make at the start of the game is going to affect how you build at the very end of the game. So there's a lot of interesting things that you can do with this, and when we go into the items, you'll kind of see some of these different effects.
That'll be fun.
For sure. I'm super excited. This is definitely going to open up build versatility and just all sorts of crazy new strategies and ways to play a certain god.
Only restrictions are based on the power of the type they provide. Mages cannot build an item that only has physical power on it, etc.
Role here. So let's start off with carry starter items and start off with one that may be a little bit familiar for some of the OGs out there. We've got Death Toll up first, and this is going to be kind of your standard starter item.
Death Toll.
Talk to me about Death Toll and what this item is.
Yeah, and one thing to mention too is we are dividing this into sections of like carry, but these are not class locked. This is not only hunter items. Anyone can build any of these items as long as it fits within the normal class restrictions. So if it has only magical power on it, only mages and guardians can build it. But otherwise, it's completely open. You could build this in the solo lane if you wanted to.
You know Osiris is going to be trying this.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Death Toll, Bellona, Osiris, those type of characters. So this one is
and another note before you get started, Pon. We're not going to go into all the nitty gritty with cost and power and stuff like that. Patch notes are live on the site right now, so if you guys want to follow along and get all those details, you are able to do so. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, Pon.
There you go.
No, that's good. I'm glad we mentioned it because we
the teleport active is going to be way more viable with a bigger map for sure.
Item is what type of roles we expect it in, and what types of decisions you get to make about the updates. But we don't want to have to list out long lists of numbers, so we're just going to kind of give you the core idea of each starter items and each of their updates, and then, but please, if you're more interested in the details, go check that out in the patch notes.
Exactly. So Desolation is the kind of the standard carry starter. This is the one that you're going to pick if you want a little bit of sustain and boxing power in the early laning phase. When you hit basic attacks, you restore health. At level 20, this just gets amped up to level 20. It gets a lot more power. The heal gets much more intense. So you can actually use this to really sustain yourself in the late game. Or you can pivot to be more offensive, where Death's Temper wants you to actually slay enemies to get a stacking basic attack bonus. So if you want to be very offensive, get those big damaging basic attacks because you don't need the sustain anymore, you can transition towards that kind of build.
Cool.
For sure, this one is kind of standard, like you said, but I'm definitely liking. Already, I'm seeing the kind of standard upgrade versus wow, what is that one going to do?
I love what they're doing with starter items with like
Gilded Arrow.
You just upgrade it later on, so you never have to like sell your starter item. I think that's good for new players.
Yeah,
too.
so if you want. Yeah, this has been the favorite for a lot of the players who really want to last hit. This is if you can actually last hit, you can get a little bit extra gold and mana and movement speed for each last hit, as long as you are lasting the target that it marks. So it'll mark a bounty from targets around you, and if you successfully last hit it, you actually get some rewards for it. And if you actually upgrade this to Diamond Arrow, it removes the restriction on the bounty target. It can be any target that you slay will give you a pretty big attack speed stim, some mana, and some extra gold to go along with it. Now, if you just want the more raw stats and you want to be more offensive, you can actually go with Ornate Arrow, which completely changes the functionality. It gives you bonus gold generation, and for the amount of gold that you keep on your person, so you keep unspent,
that's fascinating.
You actually get critical strike chance and a huge boost of attack speed. So this is if you want to hold on to like 2.5k gold to get a lot more of these stats, you don't have to get the.
That item will be very interesting to see in game.
A lot of interesting decisions there.
Very interesting.
That one sounds spicy. Let's move on to the next one. We've got Leather Cowl. What's going on with this one, Pon?
I thought you said Leather Cowl.
This is the utility carry starter item. So this one is focused more about helping your team. So the normal one is Leather Cowl gives you some power and lifesteal, and when you're alone, you get more movement speed to kind of get to a fight. And when you're with an ally, you get attack speed to help you fight with that ally. You can upgrade to Hunter's Cowl, which turns that attack speed into an aura attack speed, so your whole team gets attack speed while you're around. Them. Or you can change to Leader's Cowl, which turns you into the shot caller. You move your team around and tell them to stick with you, because if you find a target alone, or you fight maybe Fire Giant, who's an alone target with your whole team, you give them all a huge power stim as long as you outnumber them. If the enemy team is even in number with you, not as good. So
the Leader Cow, he moves and everybody else follows.
So as you can see, a lot of these items have a lot of new effects. They have a lot of things you're used to, a lot of throwbacks, but we've only looked at a few items so far, and we've already seen the first type of item that extra rewards for last hits, the first type of item that converts unspent gold to stats, which is a really interesting late game choice. The only item that tracks the number of enemies versus allies and compares them against each other and gives you different types of effects whether or not you're close to people. So we're seeing a lot of interesting.
No, I'm 100% buying that arrow. I'm playing Bakasura, and then I'm never buying an item. I'm just gonna hoard my gold all game. I have 20k gold, and I'm gonna break it.
Check out these upgrades, because there is some very
100%. It's too late. It's already happening.
A lot of this stuff can be applied to a lot of different gods. So we're gonna see. It's gonna be really interesting when this launches, seeing who's gonna be picking up what on what type of gods.
All right, moving right along from Leather Cowl, we're going to start looking at some of the solo-focused starter items. First one up, we've got Warrior's Axe. What's going on with this one?
Hello, Mr. Axe.
Warrior's Blessing is one of those items that we actually iterated quite a lot
solo
in Season 7. So this is the throwback to that. This is the kind of standard thing that you pick up if you want to like brawl your opponent. When you hit them, you steal some health from them. You get some defenses to stay in lane. Just an overall solid choice. You can upgrade this to Sundering Axe to turn that extra health steal into a percentage health steal for the late game. So if you want to
percentage health steal sounds good
from them, that's a choice that you
sounds
can
good.
Or if you want to be the hero for your team, if you want to save everyone, you can get Hero's Axe, which makes your health pool a resource to defend your team. So if they ever get CC'd, they actually get a shield based off your max amount of health. So if you're building tanky, if you're the frontliner, you can provide a pretty big shield to anyone who gets CC'd around you.
Solo laners peeling instead of diving? What Smite are you playing,
I know, right?
Everyone's playing Sending Axe, I already know. It's fine.
Yeah. We like the option.
Next up, we got another familiar name for the OGs out there, Bluestone Pendant. And this one's going to be a lot more aggressive. Let's go.
Yep, Bluestone's back. If you like Bluestone Wukong, that's the start for you. It's basically, as you remember it, it has some HP 5 on it, it has some MP 5 for some sustain in lane, but it also has the, when you hit with an ability, you apply a damage over time to targets. Really good for clear, really good for poke. You can upgrade this to level 20 for Bluestone Brooch, which is a current health
be popular
rather than just a flat dot. So this turns it into a very offensive item. You can really shred target's health at the start of a fight, or you can completely change it to Corrupted Bluestone, which takes that dot, makes it a more of a debuffing dot.
That will be popular.
But for every target that you have applied, you basically get a big boost of attack speed up to 75%. So this item can
all this stuff you're just gonna have to play with it in game, you know,
which is very different and not
because like all the starter items are gonna seem so OP on paper, and it's just gonna be a matter of just like seeing what actually is, because you have to factor in it's level 20, right?
That's a great example.
You have to wait till level 20, so like some of them are gonna be more OP late game, some of them are gonna be less OP.
That allows it to flex.
It's just gotta be
hunters,
dependent,
right? Or even some assassins. So if you like that early lane clear,
you can't upgrade them until 20, except for the support ones.
You still value that attack speed late game.
The support ones you can level up to 17.
For sure. Solo Kali. You can clear a little bit now, and late game you can just be a chainsaw.
Oh, don't give them any ideas, Pawn. We're moving on. Next up, we've got Warding Sigil. This is going to be kind of a magical protection starter item for solo laners.
Interesting.
Yep. So this is kind of a counter pickup item if you want to go that direction. If you feel like that matchup is something that you really need to handle, it'll actually provide some magical protection. And when you're hit by abilities, you get flat damage reduction. So also this will take minion damage down. So if you want to brawl with that magical solo laner, or you're really worried about magical damage, you can pick this up.
Shout out to Mark of the Vanguard.
Yep, Mark of the Vanguard style effect. You can upgrade it to Sigil the Old Guard, which actually turns it into a % damage reduction. So late game, you can really
% damage reduction is always strong.
That defense into offense with Infused Sigil. If you can eat enough abilities, you actually will charge up the item itself, and it'll explode for magical damage to targets around you. And this can happen any number of times over a fight as long as you're hit by enough abilities. So this encourages you to really just dive deep into the enemy line and just fight.
Now we're talking solo lane.
There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
Interesting.
All right. Next up, we're going to move to the mid lane, guys. Vampiric Shroud. Up next, another familiar name.
Yeah, that one we saw in the game. That was nuts.
Like a lot of old memories. I remember this from season 0, like in the preseason. Vamp Shroud DT Freya was like my go-to. But yeah, so this one will restore health and mana when your abilities deal damage.
Yo, Sacrificial Shroud. Oh, baby. Your abilities do more damage, but cost health in addition to their mana.
Soak Shroud, which again just amps up that
that's going to be fascinating depending on the stats.
Basically, infinitely stacking lifesteal bonus when you hit abilities. As long as you can keep hitting targets, you can keep stacking this lifesteal. Obviously, caps are still present, but you can get a lot of lifesteal.
That would be interesting.
And then finally, you can just completely change it, turn it to not defensive, sacrifice your own health with Sacrificial Shroud. Your abilities will deal some more damage, but each of your abilities will now cost a portion of your health.
I love it.
So you have to be really careful with this to make sure you don't kill yourself with this item, essentially.
For sure.
Those are some metal names and some metal effects.
Yeah, they are. Right, I like that a lot. I'm super interested in that one.
Sands of Time. This is going to be our cooldown focused mid starter.
Yeah, we'll see how chill people are after they read the last one. Not chill. We'll get there.
Man, there's a lot of starter. This is a great
starter. This is you get some cooldown reduction and some mana per 5 that increases as you get lower and lower in mana. You can upgrade this to Pendulum of Ages, which turns the passive just up a ton, as well as gives you extra power based off how much mana you currently have.
Interesting.
So when you're at full mana, you deal more damage. When you're lower mana, you restore mana.
Cool.
And it can be up to 160 magical power, just for an example of how much that it is.
It's a lot of power.
Or you can just completely change it, get rid of the MP5, and go with the alternate timeline. This item is, when you would die, there's an alternate timeline where you didn't die, so you just go to that one instead. This will revive you after a brief delay, giving you some health back with a very long internal cooldown. So you can kind of see the level of spice with the alternate timeline.
For sure.
Capri alt.
There's a bit of spice right there.
Make sure to burst them right when they revive, so that they the alternate timeline wasn't too fruitful for them.
Yeah.
This one certainly has a large amount of balance levers in place.
Okay.
And definitely something we'll be looking forward to PTS testing on.
Ajax's face says, I don't know if this is making it to live client.
All right, next up we've got Conduit Gem, the last one that we've got kind of grouped up as in the mid category.
Yep, so this is the kind of aggressive one. It doesn't have as much sustain as Vampiric Shroud. It doesn't have as much mana regen as Sands of Time. But what it does make for is damage. It has a pretty high amount of magical power, and it has the stack that accumulates over time that you can consume when you hit with an ability to deal a burst of true damage on target. So this can be used to help you clear wave, can be used to help you poke the enemy god, and just overall is more aggressive in nature. You can upgrade it to Archmage's Gem, which just turns that bonus true damage into a magical power scaling component. So think Raw Ultimate with 50% extra power, magical power proc on it. Wow. You can get an idea of like how much burst it's going to provide. As well as Gem Focus, which is if you can actually keep casting and keep focused on the game long enough to like keep just making sure to keep the stack up, you actually get some movement speed, some damage bonus, and some damage reduction. So just you have to keep casting, otherwise you lose it. But if you can, you get a lot of benefit from it.
Interesting.
Now I like this one, Pon, because this was a play style
Focus
we kind of lost with a lot of our newer starter items. We went to the more equalized bonus damage, or a lot of mages tend to start with sustain in some form, or instead of the bonus damage. This is the one that really lets you specifically have a lot of agency over doing a really hard hitting ability at certain times. So this is something we used to see back in the old days on Scylla. So she could really make that crush hit even harder.
Somebody that's got a lot of MP5 in their build, you can just keep casting low cooldown abilities, maybe like a Hebo. Keep casting year one over and over and over again, keep it coming up, you know?
So we'll see.
Definitely. All right, well, that wraps it up for mid-starter items. Let's move on to the jungle, guys. And the first one that we've got up is Boombas Dagger. What's going on with this one?
Man, this is fascinating, all these items. I'm loving this.
Reliable jugglers. It's going to look very familiar, but it has those upgrades to really change the late game playstyle. This is you do some bonus damage to jungle camps, and when you defeat jungle camps, you actually get some sustain, which makes sure that you can stay alive. And especially with our more aggressive junglers that we added in Season 7, and these new scorpions you have to fight, that sustain is going to be very valuable. Now you can upgrade it to Boombas Spear, which just amps up that bonus damage even more and makes it work on jungle bosses and structures. So you can actually turn your kind of like utility in clearing jungle camps.
Boombas Hammer looks pretty interesting.
With some power to support that. Or you can go with Boombas Hammer, which encourages ability and basic attack weaving, which most assassins do naturally. When you use an ability, your next basic attack is going to do some bonus true damage. And when that bonus true damage hits, your abilities will be reduced all by 1 second.
Very interesting.
So if you are good at weaving all your abilities in, you can get a lot of benefit out of this. And we'll see if people can really make the most use of this.
For sure. Well, that one was kind of ability focused, but the next one is Eye of the Jungle, and this one is attack speed focused.
Yep, so Eye of the Jungle is a completely different way that you can start the jungle. Some characters will leverage the attack.
I have to interrupt you really quick.
It has some bonus damage.
Global anti-healing aura. When not brawling, your ability in lifesteal healing taken is reduced by 30%. A god is considered brawling if they have damaged or applied crowd control to an enemy god, or if they've been damaged or applied crowd control by an enemy god in the last 4 seconds. 30% across the board, out of combat, anti-heal. They did it.
20, you can turn it into Seer the Jungle.
They did it.
Which is when you slay a large jungle monster, you get the ability to see wards temporarily.
There it is. They nerfed out of combat healing.
Utility to your team, especially around Fire Giant. You can kill something, go to Fire Giant, potentially.
I saw it over on Twitter. I had to let you know.
Being placed. Or you can get Protector of the Jungle, which means if anyone's
that's not an item. That's across the board. That's just going to be in Conquest from now on. Not an item. That's just in Conquest.
Hold on, this is a support item.
30% nerf to out of combat healing.
Nah.
Junglers aren't going to buy wards.
Perfect. Take that, healing meta.
Even if you hide it on a jungle item.
No, they don't buy wards. It automatically places one.
Take that, dude.
It's free wards.
There you go.
It's really cool to see play around words like this. This is very new. I'm really excited.
For sure. All right. This one is going to be a spicy one for all of our OGs. We're bringing back Mannequin Scepter. The Scepter. Where that came from. But I'll let Pon take it away for this one.
Yeah, if you remember Mannequin Scepter, it was never in live. I think it only ever got to PTS.
It never made it to live.
It was very strong.
Yeah.
This is a new version of it with some of the stats changed to make it more reasonable. But it's also going to be a jungler item, the more aggressive jungler item. So this one is, when you hit a target with a basic attack, you actually apply a damage over time that reduces their attack speed and burns them for damage. If you hit jungle monsters with this, though, they take bonus damage from it. So they take, I think, 2.5x the damage from this. So you can really burn through your jungle objectives really quickly. Or when you gank, you can provide this extra dot that actually burns down your target. But this item doesn't have any sustain, so you got to be really quick with actually killing targets with this. At level 20, you can upgrade it to Mannequin's Mace or Mannequin's Hidden Blade. So Mannequin's Mace is the dot becomes incredibly strong. That does even more damage, as well as does quadruple damage to jungle bosses and jungle monsters. So if you want to take down Gold Fury fast, you want to take down Fire Giant fast, this is the item to go to. Or you can go to Mannequin Hidden Blade, which is actually a out of combat burst. So if you haven't been damaged or haven't taken damage, you will in like about a 5-second window, and you hit a target first, you're going to chunk them for a percentage of their health and slow them for a long time. So
interesting.
This is your ability to kind of like jump on a target and surprise them with a lot of burst.
Very interesting.
Well, that wraps it up for the jungle starter items. And quick note on these, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, these are only available in Conquest, correct?
Yes, because they have a lot of interactions with killing jungle monsters, which aren't as available or as accessible on other maps.
That's fine.
So these will only be available in Conquest.
Cool.
All right, well, let's move on to some of the support starter items here. We've got Sentinel's Gift up first.
Support, baby!
Yeah, so Sentinel's Gift. It's a throwback to Watcher's Gift, if you're familiar with that
time.
So when you get an assist, you'll restore some health and mana and get some bonus gold. So you want to be around targets who are slaying monsters so that you can get that sustain as well as that extra gold. You can upgrade this at level 17. So all the other items up to this point have been level 20. But for these support ones, supports generally lag a little bit behind in levels. We want to make sure that they're getting this at around the same time. So level 17 instead. If you get to 17, you can get Sentinel's Boon, which turns this into a % health restore. So when you're sieging a Phoenix, you can really boost your health.
That's really nice.
And provides even more gold. Or you can go to Sentinel's Embrace, which lets you leverage aura protections in a unique way. It's 120 protections split evenly among all targets. So if you're alone, you only get 60. But if you're with another person, you give that person 60 as well. If you're around 3 people, you're going to split it 4 ways between yourself and all of them. So wow, split evenly between all of them. So you can either spike a single target by being alone with them. For
that seems really good.
A pretty considerable amount of protections to your whole team.
Wow.
Nice. That's awesome.
That seems excellent.
Right, next up, we've got Benevolence, which is going to be kind of a tactical support item, which is cool. What's going on with this one?
Yeah, this one requires you to do a little bit of math and planning and really being strategic with your team. This provides some passive gold and XP, which sounds scary on paper, but a portion of all experience and gold you gain is just kind of lost to the ether. You get only 90% value from slaying jungle monsters or slaying enemy gods. If you are around an ally, however, that 10% that would normally get lost to the ether actually goes to them instead. So you can kind of power farm someone in particular. So this kind of encourages you to go lane to lane, powering up whoever you want. And the rotation that normally would lose you farm, you're actually getting some passive gold. So it'll be interesting to see how people leverage this item compared to Sentinel's Gift. But at level 17, it can be evolved into Compassion, which will actually absorb a portion of damage from anyone around you that gets hit. So if your teammate's getting spiked by that Kraken, a portion of the Kraken will actually go to you instead of that target. We've seen some people in playtests want to be compassionate, realize that they're getting blown up very, very quickly for absorbing damage for their team, and suddenly they don't want to be as compassionate.
That's amazing.
It's very. I'm curious to see what character will make use of this, as well as Animosity, which just completely takes this more support-focused item and turns it on its head. Your basic attacks are going to deal extra damage based off your maximum health.
Weird.
So if you have a big health pool, your basic attacks are going to chunk, and they're going to deal double damage of that percent health to structures. So you'll be able to take down structures rather than trying to zone. You can actually take down that Phoenix kind of on your own, as long as minions are there to help.
Weird.
Some really unique effects here, and what we've been seeing a lot in our testing is Sentinel's Gift gives you that sustain and a lot of ways to get that pressure, especially in the early game. But Benevolence ends up with your team or your duo lane being a little higher level. So it's really like, do you want to go all in on the early game, or do you want to take a little bit of an investment strategy? And it's we've seen both be really successful. So I'm really
very interesting. Those are fascinating. I'm loving all these items, man. I'm loving this patch.
Instead of the Sentinel's
These are all fascinating changes.
I'm interested to see how the player base as a whole reacts to these.
It's
but we still have one more support treat to introduce.
I know. Let's get right to it. We've got War Flag, which is going to be the last one kind of in this support group for starter items. What's going on with War Flag?
Yeah, so this one's the more aggressive support starter item, which can make some good use in Conquest, but this is an old kind of arena familiar starter item that had a lot of use there because you're constantly fighting with your team. Getting an assist will restore health and mana to all nearby allies, so kind of like Sentinel's Gift, but for everyone, as well as boost their movement speed and attack speed temporarily. So off a full minion wave clear, you can actually leverage that attack speed and movement speed to be really aggressive against your opponent. You can upgrade this to War Banner, which will actually just amp up all the effects, more health restored to everyone, more movement speed, more attack speed. Or you can go with Spartan's Flag, which
these are all fascinating, man.
Here's where we go. You can, when you damage an enemy, you'll drop a Spartan Flag at that location, and that location has an aura that will provide power to all allies who stand near it. And the duration of the Spartan Flag and the internal cooldown of the item is the same, so you can only ever have one at a time. But you get to basically be like, we're fighting here, stand here to get some power.
For sure. All right. Well, that wraps it up for support, but we've got one more, which is kind of just like a neutral starter item that could be good for no matter what role or class that you're playing, and that one's going to be Tainted Steel.
Yep, so Tainted Steel is a neutral starter. This is the kind of anti-heal starter. If you're concerned about healing out the gate because maybe your direct lane opponent's going to have a lot of sustain, or you know that it's just going to be a lot of sustain in that game in general, you can go Tainted Steel. And when you hit targets with abilities, you apply a kind of minor anti-heal to them. So pretty straightforward starter. The upgrades change things a little bit more. Tainted Breastplate is when your enemies are hit by your damage abilities, they have your healing reduced by a more significant amount. So this can help synergize with other anti-heal on your team. Or Tainted Amulet, which enemies hit by your damage abilities have their healing reduced by less than Breastplate, but any healing that's reduced that way is instead siphoned to you, so you can actually take that healing for yourself.
All right. Well, speaking of healing, we've got
very
our next balance section
interesting.
Here. We've got some new healing rules that are going to be
they're going to go over that healing
8.
rule.
And I know there's been healing has been the talk of the town for the last few weeks on social media, Twitter, Reddit, everywhere. And we've been seeing all the conversation that have been going on. So I'll pass along to AJ to kind of further explain what's going to be happening.
They're going to go over that healing
So
change.
healing is something we've been paying attention closely to in Smite for many years. The rules of the anti-healing and the gods that are strong healers and their balance back and forth between them is something that's a big part of our balance initiatives. Now, what we've seen recently is healing gods being higher in the meta than ever before, really.
Yep.
And what's interesting about this is that healers have always been really, really good in Smite. Like, we've kind of have definitive data to show this, that their win rates have always been high. Now their play counts are as high to match that, and that's been rising over the end of season 7. So now
they're
healing,
real good.
So for a long time, healing was always strong, but a lot of people did not perceive it as all that strong. People see our anti-heal items in the game, they see how strong they are, and a lot of people are taking that at face value, and they're looking at the anti-heal items and they're going, okay, this is really strong, so healing is balanced. But in reality, healing was still really strong all this time. And now that the players are starting to learn this, and the design team and the pro players and the players out there are all starting to become aligned and seeing that healing is just very powerful on its own, that's why we're taking this time, the beginning of a season, it's the best time to do something like this, to implement a completely new rule to healing that has some pretty big effects on it. And I think Ponpon's going to walk us through the exact cause and effect.
This is good. They need to. It's too much.
So starting in Season 8 of Smite, in every single game mode, there will be a kind of global
game mode
to gods that are not fighting other gods. We've termed this as brawling, because it's not quite out of combat, but this is largely focused to what people would generally call out of combat healing. If you haven't taken damage or CC'd an enemy god, or haven't been damaged or CC'd by an enemy god within the last few seconds, your healing will actually be reduced, so that when you're trying to like quickly sustain behind like a camp, sustain off a camp potentially, you can't get quite as much health back to make sure out of combat healing isn't too strong. When you are directly fighting your opponents, you're healing at full strength. This God really only. Is the God only. So if you're trying to get that jungle monster camp or the minion wave to heal up, that's not God combat. That doesn't count. So that's really the goal here, is make sure that when you're fighting, healing I think most people would generally agree that healing feels fair when you're directly fighting each other, because you have chances to counterplay with anti-heal. They can try and juke that anti-heal, but out of combat healing feels particularly frustrating. So that's what this goal, this changes. We're also pairing this with a few reductions to the anti-heal items across the board, mostly in duration and a slight hit to their effectiveness, because if healers are going to be globally weaker when healing out of combat, we need to make sure that their strength feels good in combat.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anti-heal.
That makes sense.
They'll still definitely be strong. I think across the board, it's generally about 5% off each of these items, as well as 3 seconds off the duration.
Okay.
So mostly to make sure that it lines up with when you are
generically they're out of combat healing is worse, but that means their in combat healing does have to actually be efficient, because that's what we wanted. That's good.
Reducing frustration with out of combat healing, making sure healing feels rewarding in combat, and bring healers overall more into line with their perceived strength as kind of this plus.
I like these changes.
Team that's unique to them.
Yeah, I like these.
And kind of the last piece of this puzzle is just the couple items that do have kind of combat focused healing tech. We're doing some shifts to those, stuff like Rod of Healing, Rod of Asclepius, and Caduceus Shield. Just making sure now that we have new kind of rules for combat healing and brawling healing, just getting rid of those redundancies, right?
Yeah, so now it's just a passive boost to your healing, because the kind of in combat, out of combat, while fighting, while not fighting is now generally handled by the global aura versus needing to be on that particular item.
Okay,
for sure. So we've got big healing nerfs out of combat. Some small healing buffs in combat.
That's fine, my mate.
What we expect to be a net nerf on healing.
Cool.
And
correct.
This applies to what specific types of healing does this apply to, Pon-Pon, just for clarity's sake?
So this focuses on lifesteal and ability healing. It does not impact potions. It does not impact item healing, because those items often have very particular purposes for why they're providing that healing. But God abilities and God lifesteal will be affected by this.
For sure.
Good changes.
All right. Well, those were kind of our big pillars, big two things for balance. So let's go ahead and move right into like traditional item and God balance for 8.1. And we'll start it off with some consumables here. We've got some buffs to Elixir of Power and Elixir of Defense. Elixir of Power is now going to provide 10% penetration, and Elixir of Defense is going to provide 5% damage mitigation and 20% CCR.
Yeah, these items were just... oh, sorry, Pon-Pon.
Yeah, this kind of came out as a result of the new starter items, really, is that we now have 3K potions, movement speed potions, needing to upgrade your starter and making that decision. They kind of fell off as a...
I like that.
There's some weird build paths towards getting to them and making sure they felt worth it.
No issues with this whatsoever.
So we're just boosting up the power one to get some extra percent pen, because that will help kind of fit into more builds generally, as well as the defensive one, making sure that it feels good to build the defensive one. It felt a little bit lackluster comparatively, and that flat damage mitigation in CCR is going to really help it shine.
I like it.
All right, and we've got one relic change for 8.1. Shield of Thorns is going to be seeing a nerf here. We're going to be decreasing the damage reflect and decreasing the cap of damage taken, and that's going to be for both the base and the upgraded version.
Thank you.
So how many Thorns discussions have we had recently, Pon-Pon?
So many.
It dominates most balance meetings at some point for at least a few minutes.
This item is very polarizing. Some people love it, some people hate it.
Some
people think it's the strongest relic in the game, others think it's completely useless. The truth is that this item has an interesting place in the game. We think this item can be frustrating when people are using it really well, but it comes with proper usage, right? It's very possible to use Thorns right as the fight is disengaging and get very little value out of it. Just like it's just as easy to get scared and use your beads when you really didn't need to yet, right? It's a relic, it's on a long cooldown, so it feels like a fair effect to exist in the game. But we wanted to make sure that it had a reasonable top end when used properly. So now, when used really well, especially in a pro setting, which is where a lot of our feedback is coming from, it does create a situation where there's not a lot of counterplay. The tanky character can run at the squishy characters and be very, very hard or nearly impossible to fight back against. So what we're doing is just taking down the total caps, the maximum amount of damage
it's 5 seconds. It's 5 seconds of saying nobody can hit me. It's basically a 5-second Aegis that you can use abilities and auto attacks in.
To some tank items here, and first up we have Witchblade. The shift here. It's now going to build off of Adventurer's Blade. We're taking away the attack speed. but it's now going to provide 30 physical protections, and we're increasing the attack speed aura on it.
Yeah, so one big change here is the Adventure Blade tree is getting a little bit shuffled around. Toxic Blade will be on its own on the right, as well as Witch Blade, Winged Blade, and Relic Dagger will all be kind of in their own trio. Witch Blade is going to provide the physical protection of that tree, Winged Blade will be magical protection, and then Relic Dagger will be full health. But Witch Blade is just one of those items that really existed in this weird hybrid space of some characters really couldn't leverage the attack speed well, but really wanted the attack speed reduction.
That's nice. Nobody buys Witch Blade anymore, so that's good.
Tanky solo lane item, and just move towards that direction. So now it provides physical protection.
That's good.
As well as the aura is going to be more intense to really help with that utility.
All right, next up, we've got another change to the blade tree here. We've got Winged Blade up next. We're going to be decreasing the health on Winged Blade, but this one is going to provide 30 magical protections.
As a tank player, I'm so happy with this decision. We got the blade tree actually feeling like real support.
I like that. I like what they're doing with this tree.
Protections, and it's so nice the way we're able to work out magical on one, physical on the other, health on that one, and then an aggressive item. This is just such a fun tree. So Winged Blade provides a really powerful passive, but it hasn't been super popular in a while. We wanted to make sure we gave it a little bit of a shift because its stats are pretty powerful. But now you're going to get that new magical protections because the magical gods in Smite do tend to have a little more slows than their physical counterparts. Obviously, this item can still be good when you're against physical
I'm going to be honest with you guys.
Now you're going to be able to
I don't want to jinx it, but I'm really liking all the changes for Season 8. Like, it's hard to see how excited I am just because I've been streaming for 10 hours straight, and I feel exhausted, but I'm very excited for all these changes. Everything has been very good. Or at least exciting and interesting, you know. Even if they might end up needing to be nerfed or something, they're still fun to try and to see what happens, you know. So there's a lot of cool potential.
Physical or magical protection.
Wow, Relic Dagger is really good.
Health, as well as getting some crowd control reduction to make sure that you can actually be in the front of your team. If you get a CC, you can mitigate a little bit of that off.
For sure. All right, next up, we've got Emperor's Armor. Small buff here. We're just increasing the physical protection by 10.
Now, this is a good item, but not a great item. And it also has a very unique passive that is very tactical. It's very situational. So Emperor's Armor was kind of contrasting its stats with the other males in its tree, but now it's got more even physical protections with the other males, which is great because now you could really choose which one you want based off of the situation, not just the stats.
I like it.
All right, and then last up for tank items here, Talisman of Energy going to be seeing a buff. It's now going to provide maximum stacks on God, Death, or Assist.
Oh,
yeah, this is a buff that comes from our Olympians. They really wanted to kind of shout out this item. Talisman of Energy is one of those items that has a really strong effect, but it's really difficult to leverage in Conquest when you're fighting around like a fire giant where there's not many minions dying. So now if you actually do get a kill, if your team successfully gets a kill, they get to feel the full effect.
That just became a real good item.
Fight pretty aggressively.
Yeah, it was already low-key really good.
For sure, definitely. Yeah. All right, let's move on to some assassin items here. Jotun's Wrath going to be getting a buff here.
Good for it.
Increasing the physical power by 10.
Nice.
The Jotun's buff is finally happening. Now, I know there's been a lot of discussion on this item. Some people even going as far as to say that it should have a whole passive in addition to it. We think that's a bit extreme. The 20% CDR is still a pretty powerful defining feature of the item. However, we are aware of the fact that it's fallen a little out of favor and it's starting to feel a little undertuned. We are just giving it a power bump to make sure.
To be fair, Jones was like the worst mace in the game, so good. Buff it.
They still have their go-to.
It makes it like a great character for like Thor, you know, for like ability-based assassins to really get an early game pow.
All right, next up we've got Stone Cutting Sword going to be seeing a buff here, and we are decreasing the cost.
Oh, that's already such a good
item. But a lot of the in-hand characters have seen adjustments over the years. A lot of the items that support them have also seen adjustments over this year. And Stone Cutting really never fit into any of those builds too greatly, mostly because
that might be the first change in the entire patch that I see that
it's cheap enough to really flex in there.
I'm not so sold on that one yet.
All right, next up we got Berserker Shields. We're going to be seeing a little bit of a shift here. We're going to be decreasing the physical protection, but increasing the power, both the base power and the power from the passive.
That's fine.
Pon, you trying to troll me? Put in Berserker Shields in the assassin items section? No, he's not.
Yep.
This is an intentional shift.
Cool. I like
We're
that.
We're trying to find some hybrid items and shift them more towards the aggressive side. Right now, we have the hammer tree, and we have a lot of other things coming up for solo laners and warriors. And we wanted to also make sure that assassins had some interesting item choices. And the game was starting to feel like the hybrid items were leaning a little bit too heavily on the tank side in a couple places. So we're going to be making this key change to Berserker Shields, and I'm also setting up here Pon for the next change, which is going to have a little bit of a similar idea applied in the magical shield tree. And these are still going to be kind of hybrid items, but these are going to be more reasonable, aggressive options that assassins can choose to opt into in certain scenarios.
Yep. So we'll move right along to Warded Shield up next. We're going to be decreasing the cost on that, but also decreasing the magical protection. Yep.
So Warded Shield, that tree is going to see further adjustment with the next item, Ancile, to make this make a bit more sense. But mostly this is it was very expensive for the defense, for the amount of defense it provided. So we're bringing that down, but we're also setting up the magical protections to be in line with our general tree upgrades, making sure their stats are always upgrading when you go to a tier 3.
All right.
For sure. All right, let's talk about Ancile. We're going to be decreasing the magical protection on that and increasing the physical power.
This is a true shift right here.
Yeah, it is.
Just getting rid of the protections and increasing the power.
Wow.
This is a really cool item, and for a while it was pretty popular, and it still has
That's another item that's going to be really good in Thor.
And we really
you buy that, ton of power, you land on somebody in the back line, silence them, bam!
For diving in and getting extra CC, that is a little bit more of a balance concern for us, so we wanted to move this more towards aggression as well as giving assassins a few more choices.
Jotuns and Ancile, dude, for those ability-based assassins.
/shift here. It's now going to provide 10 physical power per stack, but will no longer.
To be fair, Serrated Edge is really not good right now. So.
Yeah, the goal of this buff is mostly to open it up towards more assassins versus just in-hand assassins. So now it'll provide physical power per stack. This makes other characters potentially want to use it if they can like dump their abilities and maybe dump their ultimate to get that power stem. But just opening up the cast that can use it. We saw after a round of balance changes to this one, it kind of fell out of favor. So making sure that other characters can make use of it is a goal for this change.
For sure. All right, we've got mage items up next. Celestial Legion Helm up first. We're going to be increasing the magical power.
Yeah, that item sucks.
Yeah, another item that's kind of a hybrid item, maybe even a tank item that we're moving a little bit more towards the aggressive direction. This item allows you to build up a lot of physical protections, which is
that
a
item
great
is still going to be
item,
not super good. It's kind of a garbage item.
The power that made it very attractive. A lot of mid laners just didn't feel like it was worth it. So we're giving it that little bump to make it feel like a real actual hybrid option for mages.
All right, next up, Spear of Desolation. This is a fun one. Now going to decrease your ultimate ability cooldown by 8 seconds on getting a kill, plus in addition to what it's already doing.
Yeah, this one provides a little bit more utility.
I love the Spear of Desolation already.
So depending on who you ask, this passive was either okay-ish or not really usable because it didn't really get into a fight. And so you kind of default to Spear of the Magus, which provides just straight-up utility. But Spear of Desolation
hot diggity dog
reduction can be really interesting on certain
characters. Oh, that's an item!
Or it just sets you up for the fight after the fight when you
fire
a giant fight.
That's a great item.
Phoenix can have your ultimate up a little bit earlier to really help you push.
That's so good.
Right, next
that's
up
like
in the
mandatory good.
Shard, increasing the magical power on this one.
And as you're seeing here, we're doing a lot of shifts with mage penetration items, and there's going to be a few more of those coming up too.
Okay.
What we want is to make sure that all of the penetration items in the mages have available to them are all looking like viable options. We've seen Divine Ruin really rise to the top this year with the healing changes as well as the buffs to the other items.
A lot of the anti-heal change
more even footing. Obsidian Shard already provides a lot of penetration, and that's great, and we were pretty happy with how its passive is working. We just wanted to give it that little extra power bump.
Cool.
Speaking of a little extra power bump, we're going to be doing the same thing to Polynomicon, just bumping up the magical power by 10.
Oh, that's fine.
Bump it up power by 10, and also this does increase its proc a little bit more by a small amount.
It's just, I mean, it's a situational item anyway, so.
All right.
The characters that were buying it are going to like it.
Soul Reaver up next. Going to be seeing a shift. It's no longer going to provide your 10% magical penetration. We're decreasing the cost, though, and we're going to be increasing the health damage at maximum strength up to 9%.
So more of like a kin spot.
Why don't you go ahead and take these next two
I like that.
Are very tied together.
I like that.
Yeah, so the next two changes are very closely related. One piece of feedback we got with the initial changes to magical penetration was that Soul Reaver felt kind of like it double dipped really heavily. It was not only getting the percent pen that was good against tanks, but also the passive that was good against tanks. And so we're going to remove the kind of double dipping that it had and more focus on its core strength, which is
I like it.
Dealing percent health damage to targets, making sure that feels good.
I like it.
Without the penetration, we feel like these are going to be roughly equivalent stat shifts to really focus on an anti-tank direction. And then the next one that's coming up is going to be where we add the 10% back because we want to make sure there are a breadth of options available.
For sure. So we are adding that 10% magical penetration to Rod of Tahuti, and I will let Pon take it away.
Yeah, Rod of Tahuti is the very high power option for mages, and now it's going to be a little bit more desirable with the penetration. We talked quite a bit internally about should this one get 10% and have a nerf.
Rod of Tahuti
or any other changes
should be bought.
And we overall went with it could probably survive just the 10% penetration utility. Its passive is relatively strong.
I would buy that item if I were you.
It is very situational to use, and you're other potentially very powerful passives like Ethereal Staff is a pretty common one that we were discussing. What you could.
I would go ahead and buy that Rod of the Booty, folks.
Use this penetration, and we're going to be excited to see how mage players fit this very expensive.
As a wise man once said to me, son,
definitely.
If you can buy the booty,
right, Cursed
buy the booty.
Up next, going to be seeing a nerf here. We're going to be decreasing the movement speed and the stack count, but we're increasing the power per stack from 3 to 4, 15 to 16 total.
So really what this does is create a bit of a shift, but we're nerfing the movement speed mostly. We made it an inverse adjustment to the magical power to make it about the same as before, but the movement speed is being lost, and that's what's going to be played into the next change on Doomorb as well.
To be fair, people were zooming way too fast.
Speed by 2% from 6 to 4.
Cool.
So Doomorb is Doomorb rush is starting to be a mage meta that we're seeing a lot of. And on a new map, on a bigger map, on a wider map, we know that's going to get even more popular. So we've already been seeing it on the rise in Season 7. We wanted to make sure we gave it a little touch downward before Season 8. We were planning on doing this for Season 8 anyway, but even if we didn't see it too much in Season 7, but I'm glad we did, so people feel like the nerf makes more sense.
It does make more sense.
This is going to be, I think, still a very strong strategy on the new map, so we're going to be keeping a close eye on it.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to some warrior items. Up next, Shifter Shield, one of my favorite items here. Going to be increasing the physical protection and increasing the protections gained while under 75% health and decreasing the cost.
A lot of buffs.
Yeah, so kind of the reverse of what we saw with Assassins. This was an item that was kind of in the breeder category where it gave us some power and some protections. But we're going to shift it more towards tanks so they have access to this item. It's going to have some more upfront protections, and it's going to get a little bit extra.
That's just a buff on a buff on a buff right there for Shifter Shield.
Just to make it more kind of like interesting for the warriors who want to be a bit more offensive to build into. And the cost is coming down because it was also pricey for the stats it was providing in general.
Right. Frostbound Hammer up next, another fun item. Going to be increasing the physical power and increasing the attack speed reduction on the item.
A Frostbound Hammer buff. How long has it been? This item has been years. Really fallen out of favor over the years, and we wanted to be careful to not buff the slow. We know
don't do that
spot, but this item's stats are a little underwhelming, and we thought its counter potential could be better. So
Bologna and AMA are certainly gonna like that change for sure.
Fast attacking assassins or hunters. The Frostbound Hammer is actually gonna have stronger attack speed reduction, which I think is really great. It makes this item a lot more interesting, gives you a lot more different choices to make and when you want to buy it, as opposed to it just being like the default slow item.
For sure. All right, we've got another one in the hammer tree here. Runeforge is going to be seeing a shift, increasing the health, but decreasing the power, but increasing the passive damage increase.
Weird.
Okay, so you'll see another hammer after this as well, which is the goal of making sure all the hammers feel like pretty equitable buys compared to what Sledge has been for the most of Season 7. Runeforge Hammer getting a shift towards being more defensive in nature, getting some bonus health, losing some power, but for the high base damage that a lot of warriors provide, they can leverage this passive damage increase a bit better. So assassins who want that bonus damage will have to contend with the 10 power reduction, but warriors who don't really build as much power, that bonus passive damage increase is going to help them out a lot.
Okay.
Cool. All right, and the last up in the hammer tree, the sledge, everyone's favorite item of Season 7. Going to be seeing a straight up nerf.
Thank you.
Decreasing the health and decreasing the protection.
I'll take it.
the item with the best name in the game does have to get nerfed occasionally. The sledge is kind of the cornerstone of all of these warrior changes. We know that this item was strong, but we also had a lot of concerns about warriors and solo still being good across the game. And role balance is really important to us. Even if there's an item that's over-purchased, that's okay as long as the overall game feels good. But we're taking this opportunity to fix that, bringing down the sledge's power, just straight up giving it a nerf, which it needs, and then kind of redistributing that power elsewhere into the Runeforged and Frostbound and some of these other changes.
Good.
All right, and last up for tank items, Shield of Regrowth. Going to be seeing a nerf to the movement speed from the passive by 10%.
Zoom got a little bit less.
Stupid Zoom Hercules, dude.
Zoom last changes that we were looking at towards
speed.
It's a lot of movement speed. It's DRing itself almost immediately too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this item was one of those items that we were looking at, especially when we were looking at the larger map, similar to Doom Orb. Using a few builds really leverage this movement speed really high, but also on the new map, that movement speed is going to let you go around the map quite fast. We just want to take some of the edge off of that item to make sure that it was more in line with the power that movement speed as a whole is going to be kind of getting buffed in with the new map being bigger.
All right, well, that wraps it up for tank items. Let's move on to hunter items, and we've got an all-new one up next.
Man, the pathos
Let's talk
are
about
huge,
dominance. Going to be coming in Season 8. It's going to be building off of Charge Morningstar, providing power, mana, and MP5, 10% physical penetration, and a passive. Your basic attacks will now benefit from an additional 10% physical penetration. Pon, what's going on with this new item?
Interesting.
Yeah, so this is another start of a penetration shift, similar to what we saw in Mages, just taking the feedback that we've gotten from our last round of physical penetration changes and kind of addressing concerns. Mostly Atalantis Bow had really dictated a lot of builds throughout the year, so we wanted to create a new item that provided a similar power without so many synergy stats and then adjust accordingly. So Dominance is that new item. It's going to be focusing on penetration.
That's a weird item.
So if you get a lot of your damage output from base attacks like a hunter, you can definitely build into it. And this also gives an interesting new upgrade path from the tier 2 hunter start if they still want to go that after seeing all the stuff.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
For sure. All right, since we're kind of talking about this penetration shift, I'll stick with you, Pon. Let's talk about Atalantis Bow up next. We're going to be decreasing the physical penetration percentage and decreasing the cost on the item.
Oh, but they made it cheaper.
So this is just going to be an adjustment to remove it from being the 20% pen option. That's going to be more fit by dominance now. And then adjust the cost accordingly. It's still a good amount of penetration, attack speed, a strong
pretty
passive.
Freaking cheap.
It's not going to be so build defining as it has been throughout the year.
All right, and then last up, I'll throw it to you again, Pon. The Executioner, which kind of is under the penetration tree here, talking about pen.
Yeah, that's great.
Buffing the item.
That'll make Executioner very, very relevant again. That's a great change. Yep.
With all these shifts, especially because Atalantis Bow was a very strong percent item, Executioner did get an adjustment and largely fell out of favor. We want to make sure that it still has a place, especially with different.
Actually, will have relevance with that change. Not every game probably, but definitely for certain characters, certain enemy teams, etc.
Really hitting that same target over and over. If the front line's really trying to dive you, this is going to be a pretty effective tool in your toolkit.
For sure. All right, so we've kind of talked about physical penetration percentage on the hunter items, but let's talk about crit a little bit, AJ. Talk to me about what we're going to be doing for crit on hunter items in Season 8.
So crit is a very interesting stat, very polarizing, and we're going to be making some changes that are going to affect a variety of different crit items here. So really what we feel like we've learned the most over the years is that crit feels really bad in small percentages. It's a very big effect, and it's random.
Look at no crit on these.
Random chance is what makes crit fun, but it also can make crit really frustrating when you have like 7% crit chance and you hit your opponent 3 crits. Like people get really frustrated by that. So what we're doing is we're actually going to be making a change to a lot of crit items where the tier 1 and tier 2 items don't have any crit chance on them.
I like that a lot.
So you have to actually build all the way to the tier 3 before you get crit chance. And what that lets us do is that make sure that nobody gets crit in really small increments. You have to buy a full item to get a reasonable amount of crit where it's still it's still going to be interesting because you're not sure when you're going to get crit, but it's not going to be frustrating. That's
getting the bejeebers out of me, dude.
Power
the absolute bejeebers.
Able to make the items better because
great timing though. Literally excellent timing on that merch purchase.
Quite a while. So we're also
literally genuinely perfect
items in a few ways as well. So we're going to see that.
Yeah, for sure. So TLDR, 8-pointed shuriken, hidden dagger, short sword, all getting their crit removed, but getting a small little bump to help out. But let's talk about some of the T3 crit items here, and we'll do to Rage up first. We're going to be increasing the power and increasing the cost on the item.
Okay.
Yep. So Rage is one of the kind of follow-ups from all these changes, making sure that tier 3s always have upgraded stats from their tier 2 counterpart.
Cool.
The tier 2 got to 25 power, so now Rage needs to be bumped up a little bit, but it's also getting some cost to adjust for that too. Largely, we're expecting Rage's power to remain relatively similar. It's in a pretty good spot.
All right. Deathbringer up next, the big boy crit item. We're going to be increasing the physical power from 40 to 50.
Deathbringer is very popular. A lot of people like it. A lot of people enjoy it.
Just
it
give
hasn't
it
really
some
been
more
considered
power.
meta in a long time. So we're trying to bring this up just a little bit in its power. So it fits better with more builds. It gives you that power. It's a high cost, high power item, and it really didn't quite feel like it had the stats that it should.
All
Very
right,
interesting.
Let's move on to the Shuriken tree. We've got Shadow Steel Shuriken up next. We're going to be increasing the power and increasing the attack speed.
Yep. So this is going to be similar with like all the shurikens. They're all going to get some level of adjustment to help them out because they were generally underperforming. Shadow Steel Shuriken, the anti-heal one, is going to get some power and attack speed. There's also changes related to its anti-heal that have been kind of talked about in the anti-heal section. So those changes are also in addition to these, but we just want to separate them out because they're very two different talking points and discussion points.
Cool.
For sure. Yep. Up next in the Shuriken tree, Wind Demon, just getting a straight up crit chance buff by 5%.
Congrats. Look at you, Wind Demon.
This item buffs the user for getting that crit. So this is the high crit item in the tree. And we want you to make sure that you're able to get those Wind Demon procs.
For sure.
Yep, and also making sure that there's a passive amount of crit chance on this item so that when you do invest in that tier 3 item, you have enough crit chance that the enemy feels fair that when you crit them, right?
Right, just like with the changes to the tier 2s.
Very nice, very nice.
Sure. All right, and then last up for items overall, we've got Poison Star. You're seeing a little shift. We're going to be decreasing the cost and decreasing the poison slow.
Okay.
This item provides utility uniquely to crit. But its cost was largely prohibitive, and this item has a history of being very strong, with its slow especially, making it able to box opponents very effectively.
These are good changes.
Bring down the cost so people can fit it more into their build.
Nothing wrong with this right now.
Decrease the slow that was the frustration point from it. So now the damage reduction you bring in a boxing trade is going to be the majority of the strength of this item.
All right, that wraps it up for items. Let's move on to gods, guys. Let's go ahead and start with Janus.
We finished the items.
We're seeing some significant changes here, and we're going to go in game and take a look at it.
My goodness.
I'll pass it along to AJ and talk to me about Janus and what's going on.
So Janus is a very interesting god. He has some of the most unique features in the game, and he's always been a huge balance debate. Now, we are pretty happy with Janus's design. It's very unique. It's very high skill cap. And players who are picking up Janus and don't really know what they're doing tend to do pretty poorly as well. So we're really trying to be careful to not just overbuff this god because we know how powerful he can be in the pro scene.
No, they're not reworking him.
What we did is we wanted to look at some of his abilities and their inconsistency. Janus has some very strange things to learn about him, and a few things that didn't really feel like they needed to exist on the kit. They don't really add to his uniqueness. So what we're doing is making a key change to Portal, where that enemies who have been CC'd by Portal and are falling will be able to be damaged, like other banishes. This is a consistency change, as well as this gives the Janus player a little bit more leniency into how easy or hard it is to hit the combo between Portal and Unstable Vortex. So making that element of the kit a little easier and making it Janus just a better team player.
That's a pretty big buff right there, honestly.
Now, the ability we're changing even more that has made us kind of dub this a minor rework is Unstable Vortex. We're changing the hit area of this ability, and by that I mean we're specifically filling in the middle. We're not changing the outer edges. This ability is still going to hit the same sized area on the outside, but we're removing the negative space. So any space in the middle is going to count as a hit.
Wow, that's a big buff.
The previous Janus had a small, what we have pretty much determined is mostly luck level of space to dodge the ability. It's extremely small and very rare to do, and doesn't really feel skillful. It felt lucky. We are still maintaining the double hit in the sweet spots, and we are making significant fixes to the targeter to more accurately affect the hit area. That's going to make it look like it got a lot bigger, but you have to trust us. We're not making it bigger. The previous targeter was just very rough. It was very vague. There was a lot of area where the targeter wouldn't hit gods, but you actually were hitting gods. And then we had one more Janus change, which is themed around audio clarity, visual feedback.
This is nice changes for Janus.
When the Janus fires his ultimate through space and time,
Heroine's pumped right now.
It's hard to see this. It's coming at you through walls from long distances away. So what we're doing is adding an audio cue to it so you can hear it coming towards you, which will give you a chance to juke. And we're also adjusting the amount of damage that it can deal. So to avoid... This was maybe one of the only abilities in the game that could literally one-shot. And now you won't be able to actually do that. They have to be a little damaged already, or you have to have someone to follow.
No more one-shotting me, so, kiddos. Take that.
Something we would consider a rework, but a very light one, just because of the depth we went into these abilities, and something that doesn't really radically
I'm gonna know that it's coming before it 75% helps me. Got him. Checks in the mail, Pawn. I had to pay $1,000 for that change. Would you believe it?
The changes here. So there's the portal there. Pawn showing off and driving here. See the new targeter for unstable vortex there. And you see like the little electricity in the center there that actually is counting as a hit.
That's cool.
Right.
Okay.
Yep, just showing off all the different targeter shapes. Double hitting still working. The damage in the center area.
It looks pretty freaking cool.
You can actually damage them while they're falling. So
gotta say, it looks pretty dope.
Previously would have missed, which most players probably wouldn't have expected, but you actually had to wait a little bit closer to when they landed to actually confirm that hit. And then finally, the ultimate. Just a few audio things. You're gonna hear it more play against Giannis, but firing so you can kind of hear that audio being a bit more intense than other sound effects, making sure that players can actually hear that when it approaches them.
Good.
Correct. Lots of big Janus changes coming in, so I'm sure Clumsy is super excited. He's going to be playing some Janus
fine by me, man.
Up in season
I don't have any issues with those changes.
Right along and let's talk about some of the meta nerfs that we're looking at here for Season 8. And kicking off with Bakasura. Insatiable Hunger, we're going to be decreasing the movement speed.
So Bakasura has been continuing to dominate the ranked queues, right, Pompon?
Really?
Yeah, we've seen him do pretty good work in the ranked queues. We've seen certain characters, especially like characters with high movement speed, being able to like really box opponents. And so this next series of changes is really focused on characters that we expect that are currently pretty good, that are also going to benefit from the map being larger and having their movement speed. We really debated back and forth how much we wanted to affect characters that had movement speed in their kit before players got to see them. And so we largely just focused on the characters we know are currently performing really well and are very likely to continue performing very well on the new map. So that's going to be Bakasura, Ra, and Poseidon. In Bakasura's case, it's his passive. This is going to be a potential 6% movement speed reduction when he's at full stacks.
For sure. And move right along to Ra here. He's been shining in Season 7.
Yeah.
So we're going to take that down just a little bit. Speed
that's
of light.
That's fine by me.
Speed on that.
Now, I'm sure we could have gotten away with a raw nerf, whether or not the map and the movement speed was going to be in his advantage in the next season.
Yeah, for sure.
The god is doing very well. So
there's ban every game, man.
As Pon mentioned, we're trying to look at only the gods who are already doing really well and the ones we expect to get even better in the next map that are being nerfed. Specifically at Ra's movement speed, we've given the god a lot more additional damage and utility. He's also going to be heavily affected by the healing changes, which we want to call out here. So maybe you expected more Ra nerfs. Don't be disappointed because you could kind of slap a label on here that says 30% decreased all healing. So kind of a big deal for him too. So just a small movement speed nerf in addition to those healing changes.
True.
All right. And then last up that we were talking about here in this group, Poseidon. Changing Tide is going to be decreasing the movement speed on that.
Yep, and this one might look a little bit bigger than Ra, which might seem a little bit strange, but this is one character that had access to that 15% movement speed basically at the start of the game, where Ra couldn't really maintain his passive at the start of the game. So just a little bit larger hit to make sure that Poseidon, in his ability to really rotate and outmaneuver his opponents, feels a bit more
down, enemy god.
All right, moving right along. We've got Agni up next, and we're going to be making a change to Combustion, the passive. Basic attacking a god now provides 2 stacks.
Cool.
this is a theme we've gone through in a few different gods, a few different passes, even items like Talisman of Energy today. We want to make sure that these items that play off of minion waves can still be useful in teamfight scenarios.
That's
Agni
nice.
had this same issue. It was very hard to stack his passive in just teamfight scenarios. So now the Agnis that mix in some basic attacks in between their abilities and are able to get some little bit of poke are going to be able to stack that combustion, get those extra dot damage, and just be more effective Agni players, which we're really excited about.
Definitely, definitely. All right, next up, Chernobog, going to be seeing a buff here. Vicious Barrage, we're going to be increasing the attack speed and decreasing the mana cost.
Yeah, this ability double scaled. It was 20 to 60% and also 3 seconds to 5. It probably didn't need to scale as intensely.
40% on the attack speed at the start. That's a big buff.
Stronger if it's
20% level 1.
It's going to be a 40% speed stem, and scaling the same 60% that you're familiar with. And in addition, this item is often used kind of in combination with his first ability.
That's nice.
So we want to make sure that that isn't too mana intensive in the laning phase.
All right, next up, we've got Chiron. Going to be seeing a change to Herbal Medicine. It's now going to provide power to allies that have been healed.
Yeah, Chiron's passive is already a little bit sleeper because it's a little bit of sustain that can be really good.
I like Chiron's
this
passive.
Ability power theme, and he also has this kind of like additional team utility theme, like he can cleanse allies with a hunter. So this is just a really cool little addition we're adding to his passive to help Chiron get a little ability power boost, or
I love that
allies.
power buff.
And this passive, even though I said it was a little bit sleeper OP, most players consider Chiron passive to be pretty unexciting. So we wanted to give him something that was a little bit more interesting and had a little bit more potential. And I'm really excited to play this because I love playing the Horseman already. So I know I'm going to be running him in Season 8.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. All right, next up on the buff list, we got Kronos. We're going to be increasing the attack speeds per level, and then stop time. Going to be increasing the power scaling.
Yeah, so Mage ADC has had a very interesting history in Season 7. Mostly with a lot of different items and adjustments.
Interesting.
We looked at Kronos and Soul in particular, and they seem like characters that could use buffs, but given the volatility of Mage Items at the time, we kind of held off on that change. After seeing how everything is kind of like resolved,
that's a nice buff.
Could still use those buffs, and so you'll see
a very nice buff for Kronos
later on. But Kronos getting that attack speed per level and getting a little bit extra scaling on stop time.
All right, next up, we've got Danzabuto. The legendary Tanuki has been out on the battleground hustling folks. So
they're nerfing him finally.
Dubious Savings up first. We're going to be decreasing the bonus power.
Yeah.
And then Fool's Gold, we're going to be decreasing the base damage and the damage.
That's good, though. That's fine.
Yeah, we are absolutely thrilled with this god launch. I think he's super fun and interesting. And as tends to happen with new god launches, he's a little bit on the powerful side. We're toning down his key poke damage as well as this free power he's getting from his passive, which stacks over time. So that adds up really in the end when you're playing a hunter. Really excited to see how Danzabuto gets played throughout the next year and how it gets affected by the new map. And as he hasn't had his real chance for a lot of pro play yet,
those are good changes.
If he stays a major contender throughout the year or not. So we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on him. But he needs a little downward adjustment in this first update since his launch, so that's a good thing to get to.
All right, Fender up next. Unchained, we're going to be increasing the physical power scaling.
Really?
And then Seething Howl is going to immediately generate 2 Unbound Roots upon cast.
Wow, that's
and then Brutalize. Last but not least, we're going to be
that's buffs on buffs on buffs on buffs on buffs. That's huge.
Yeah, Fender is just getting some love, especially on the more assassin-oriented side.
Wow.
The extra scaling on Unchained is going to make his leap quite deadly. The Seething Howl, getting some extra utility to generate runes immediately, often helps Fenrir players really get to that.
Fenrir is coming in hot in Season 8, y'all.
There's a lot of interesting ways that you can use this, especially like going from jungle clear to a lane gank.
He's coming in hot.
Is really important for him. As well as Brutalize, getting the extra AoE damage is not only help on clear, but help really make it a ability that you want to cast, even if maybe basic attacking canceling might be a little bit quicker DPS.
That's literally a massive buff.
If you can get in there and find an opportunity, can be quite valuable. So we want to make sure that strength is very highlighted.
Okay.
For sure. All right, next up, we've got Hachiman seeing a buff and a fix here. Eagle Eye, we're going to be decreasing the cooldown. And then Mounted Archery, we fixed an issue where Hachiman could fire other abilities while exiting the ultimate.
Man, dude.
Normally we list bug fixes in their own section, but this is going to have balance implications, and we also will be looking into making the same fix on Rama, which we'll get to in a little bit. This maybe should be listed as a shift because of that, because this is a potentially large nerf. Players who are especially adept at Hachiman were able to quickly dash and use other abilities out of exiting their ult, which caused some strange animation things. It didn't look intended. It was obvious that was not our goal. So we're adding a little bit of additional post fire at the time there to make sure that he has to actually land, reset his animations, and dash, and so you can actually see what he's doing.
Cool.
That's going to be a potentially large nerf. He's also getting a small buff along with that with the Eagle Eye ability. We were terrified about this ability when we were first designing it. The idea of basic attacks hitting far away, but we've realized that basic attacks that are far away are pretty jukeable, right? So there's
pretty hard to hit.
An opponent can do to counterplay this. So we're just buffing this ability a little bit more in the cooldown, and this gives Hachiman some really cool.
It's basically a nerf to Hachi, yeah, basically.
You can actually start poking really scarily with this amount of damage. So definitely excited for this shift. This god has always been on the cusp of pro play, so he probably will remain there. He's hard to estimate, honestly. So I'm really curious to see how this plays.
That's fine though.
Definitely. All right, Hercules up next, seeing a buff. Earthbreaker going to be increasing the damage on it.
Yeah, so we recently adjusted his passive, which took a lot of the edge off his early game. So we wanted to give some of that back and give him some additional utility, mainly some base damage to bring back the strength that he lost in his passive. Earthbreaker looks okay, clear early on, but as you rank it up, it's going to provide the extra base damage that we've seen a lot of warriors.
Looks okay. Changes, like doesn't look too problematic right there.
Small scaling adjustments. They really do a lot in the long term. So we're excited to see where Hercules actually falls, especially now that his level 1 isn't so lethal.
Most definitely. All right, let's move on to Izanami here. Death draws nigh.
Hey.
Izanami's sickle projectile will increase as she gains attack speed. This should result more closely with her sickle returning before a second one fires.
This is a spicy one.
Cool.
Izanami's basic attacks are strange, and that's intentional, right? We did some really cool, interesting things with these
very
attacks.
Interesting.
But one, and we kept all of her basic attack properties the same, except for the pass through and the returning. What that has created, though, is when she starts building fast attack speed, she starts having multiple projectiles in the play space at the same time. Some going this way, some going that way, and it gets really a bit cluttered and confusing. So now we have added a new buff to her where her basic attack projectiles actually fly faster as her attack speed goes faster.
I love that.
Which keeps it so she pretty much only has one sickle ever out at a time. Makes it much easier to see, a lot easier to focus on. Makes her basic attacks feel a lot better. It is a potentially powerful change, though, so we will keep an eye on her. This goddess has been pretty casual strong for a long time, but has never really broken into the pro player high-ranked play. I'm really interested to see if this change is able to do that, or if she just becomes like a casual nightmare. We're going to keep a close eye on it either way, but we wanted to make her feel as good as possible.
I love the honesty. Does this help her at higher levels, or does it just make casuals miserable? Sure. We're going to find out.
Next up, we got Merlin. We're going to be seeing a shift here. Frostbolt, we're going to be decreasing the scaling, but then Radiate, lots of changes here. We're going to be decreasing the time between ticks, and then changing that. It has lots of implications for magical power scaling. I'll let Pan, our math expert here, do the explaining here.
Yeah, there's too much math for this.
So the quick of this change is Merlin's range poke is quite good. Frostbolt's really good. Blizzard's really good. The arcane orb that flies out is really good. But the Radiate channel is very risky, and often it didn't really match up visually with what was going on. It's a channeled fire beam, but it only had half-second interval ticks, so you'd be hovering a fire beam on someone and they're not really getting hit, which felt strange. So we've increased the tick rate so that it actually feels a bit more responsive when you're using it, and we've done damage adjustment numbers to make it worthwhile to cast in range if you're going to put yourself at risk and be that far forward with Merlin.
Okay,
so
I like that.
Ticks faster, and the math adjustment largely means that if you get the full channel off on someone, you're going to be doing more damage than you were previously.
Okay.
Most definitely. All right, speaking of more damage, we've got Naja up next, and he's seeing some sizable buffs here. First up, we've got Flaming Spear, changing the heal there to be 0.75 of your maximum health per stack. Then Armillary Sash. This ability can no longer crit, but we're increasing the damage on it and increasing the scaling by 50%. And then Windfire Wheels, we're going to be increasing the beads window for Windfire Wheels. And then upon landing, you're going to be gaining protections.
Wow.
So lots of stuff for that guy.
I might need some help here explaining all this, Pon.
Wowzers.
Let me take a first shot at it. There's a couple different goals all happening at once here. We have, first, we want to keep an eye on avoiding Neja from being a support, or too good of a support. For a long time, we could not buff Neja in very many meaningful ways because he would just go back to dominating the duo lane in a way that's frustrating.
He really would.
Certain changes in this, like adding more power scaling and making the heal not heal off of max health, help move him towards an assassin, more of an assassin direction.
Cool.
We're also looking into some just quality of life issues. So we had a lot of basic attack animation bugs that could occur when using his self-stim. And we also had some just kind of confusion and difficulty building and not so fun gameplay with dealing with this ability crit. And this is something that came a lot from our pro player feedback. They just wanted a more consistent experience. When you're playing an assassin like him, they just want you to be able to deal damage. They don't want to necessarily be surprised by whether or not this damage is a huge hit. Then we finally rounded this out with the ultimate. The ultimate is essentially, we're shifting it. We're applying two different things to it. One is that we're making the beads window so that what we mean by that is the time when Neja hits a god before they're carried into the air. We're increasing that slightly. That's going to allow for players to react to it. We did already do this once, but we've still essentially been reported, especially even by pro players, that say when you get hit by this at point blank range, it's virtually humanly impossible to beads it. So we're making that more doable, but then we're also giving the Neja player a bonus for firing their ultimate. Now, Pon, you could probably talk a little bit more here about this final protections buff.
Yeah, so this is when you land. So this is in the situation where like it immediately gets canceled
up in the air.
Yep.
Cool.
Right. But the goal here is that when you actually are successful in that case, often you're just going to land
get blown up.
Assassin players who aren't building protections, they're going to get a lot more leverage out of this protections to survive. Whereas if they ult and someone beats it, they have Sash at their disposal. They have the new power scaling stim to heal themselves and survive those situations. So they have some toolkits, but when they don't really have a way to react upon landing. And support Neja players didn't really need this in the first place, and they can't really leverage the protections as well as potentially an assassin Neja player can. And that's the goal of a lot of these shifts, is really making it so that when you build power, when you build a bit more ability focused, you're going to be able to use all those parts of your kit a lot better. And you get help where you need to make sure that you can actually...
I can dig it.
Just for clarity, if you fire Neja's ultimate and miss or it gets cleansed, you will not get the protections buff. You have to go up into the air and then kill someone or do the whole thing and then come down to get that.
Correct.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Well, then let's move right along to Raijin up next. Going to be seeing some buffs here as well. Percussive Storm,
good for him.
Decreasing the cooldown. Same thing with Raiju. And then Thunder Crash, we're going to be increasing the scaling on lightning and thunder damage from 20% to 30%.
Yep. So Raijin getting some adjustments here. Raijin's been one of those characters that there's a bit of history that kind of kept Raiju and Thunder Crash having low damage and higher
because he used to one shot.
In that he used to be able to really like wombo combo you really quickly with those two abilities in tandem. We did a lot of adjustments since then. So Raiju getting the decreased cooldown for help clear and more aggressive poke, as well as Thunder Crash getting a bit more offensive.
Those are good changes.
Feel pretty safe.
Those are good changes.
Finally, Percussive Storm, just more access more often to his primary wave clear, helps him compete with other mages in the laning phase.
All right. Next up, we've got Rama. So this is similar to Hachiman. We got these in alphabetical order, but we could have grouped it with Hachiman up there. Same thing. We're going to be fixing an issue where Rama could fire abilities.
He can fire his 3
a little bit earlier than
and he like rolls out. It's like, what?
So this is essentially a pretty sizable nerf to Rama because people already use this effect. This one gets used even more than Hachiman.
Yeah.
Rama, after landing from his ultimate, can escape things really quickly. This isn't a big amount of time we're adding to this, but we just want to make sure that Rama looks like he actually lands and the character animates and then can roll and dash properly. Because right now, or before this change, you're able to dash so quickly that Rama doesn't really do his animation.
Looks like you literally roll out of the air.
Slow down.
Yeah.
This could potentially be a big nerf, but the god has been performing very well for most of the year. So we're not too worried about it, and it is just something that we think needs to get fixed.
All right, and then last up for gods, guys, we're almost through. Soul going to be seeing a buff here.
We're going to make
Unstable Manifestation, we're going to be increasing the attack speed, and then Stellar Burst, increasing the damage.
Yep, similar to Chronos, another major DC we're really keeping our eye on with all the especially Hecate ring mainly, and after things kind of settled, they were still underperforming compared to their other Mage Agency counterparts. And so we feel pretty safe now bringing them up more into line, boost the passive strength, and boost a Stellar Burst to her primary clear.
All right. Well, that is it, guys. That is Season 8 balance for 8.1. We did it. We got through it.
There's no way.
Much, but we've still got a ton more to go over, which is crazy. So you guys have been talking for a long time.
Well, we have a ton to go over.
News. You guys can take a break, and I'll break all this stuff down. So first up, voting for the 2021 Olympians Player Council is live right now. We've been bringing this program back. It's been such a huge benefit to us, and we've had such a pleasure working with all of the Olympians that we've had over the past 2 seasons, and we are super excited to bring the program back again. Head over to smitegame.com/Olympians, get in your vote. I believe voting is going to be live just for a week, so be sure to check out all the applicants there. Definitely going to be a good time. We've got lots of great people on that list that are super deserving. Next up, the TMNT Battle Pass. It's going away in just a couple of weeks. So if you guys want to get radical on the battleground, play with Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, be sure to pick up the Battle Pass and level it up. You've still got a couple of weeks to get all those amazing skins. This crossover was super awesome, and I have definitely had a ton of fun playing with the turtles on the battleground. Next up, it is SWC week, but that means SWC weekend is tomorrow, guys.
It did screw it up.
The Smite World
I was opening up the PTS
the top
to
8
see.
bracket is going to play out this weekend, and we will crown.
I want to open up the PTS and see if it's up.
A new king team of the battleground. So be sure to tune in, watch, interact, and chat. We've got tons of drops for you guys that you can get if you're watching on Twitch. Be sure to link your Hi-Rez and Twitch accounts to get tons of goodies. It's going to be an amazing time. So much Smite content and esports this weekend, so be sure to tune in. And a couple more things. We've got a lot of sales because it's SWC, so we got a celebrating game with a lot of sales. So gems are on sale right now. You can get the digital
gems are on sale
for 33% off. Tons of chests and a whole lot more. And then last thing for SWC weekend, we're bringing back the For Fans by Fans Fan Forge contest. So if you're an artist or a content creator,
by fans,
and you want to make all sorts of official supported Smite swag and make a little money on the side,
would you say that
you can do that?
This is
going to open in January.
Only fans?
And the winners of the Smite World Championship are actually going to be choosing the finalists for that. So it's going to be super exciting and a great opportunity for all of our artists and creators to make some official Smite swag. But that wraps it up for all of my community news, guys. You guys have one more big thing that you want to talk about. Matchmaking and ranked updates in Season 8. Matchmaking.
This is important.
A little bit. Ranked and matchmaking kind of go hand in hand. But I will defer to you guys on what's going to be happening for ranked in Season 8.
I'll kick this off, Pon, and then you can explain what's going to happen. So we have been listening to our players about matchmaking as best we can. It's a very complicated situation.
It is.
You can check out any online game anywhere in the world. People are always wondering about matchmaking. How can you improve it? What's going wrong? What's going right? It's just a difficult problem to solve. It can heavily scale based on region, based on player preference, based on just how you're feeling that day. There's a lot going on. So we're going to get into some more specific ranked changes, and Pon's going to be explaining what we're going to be doing differently about our ranked system.
Explain it to me, Pon.
But I want to reassure players that even though you don't see it on this list, we are looking at our core matchmaking systems. We are finding more ways to track data, and we are open to change, and we're going to keep that as a key priority this year.
Yeah, I sit on Ajax's couch,
what we can do right now is we can adjust the ranked system, the ranked progression, the MMR system, adjust those in ways that players have very clearly told us through their feedback that they would like us to implement.
Okay.
This has a lot of interesting mathematic implications, so we're going to be watching closely, but we think we found the combination of changes that our players will be the most excited about for ranked. So Pon, why don't you go ahead and tell them these changes that we have planned?
Give it to me, man.
Yeah, so the big thing that we've heard from the community is largely around what happens when a new player enters the rank system. They could be at 1500, and let's say they play their first match, someone DCs on their team. They play their second match, and their jungler really carries that game. Well, they've won 2 games, and now their MMR has really, really spiked, potentially like 1900.
Yep.
But we really haven't verified that they are potentially at that level. That kind of speed creates some situations where some players can get perceptibly lucky at the start. And so one thing we want to do is kind of mitigate that factor. So now at the for this rank season, we're actually going to be removing variants. players are going to have a set amount of base MMR that's expected to be adjusted each game, and the only adjustment about how MMR is going to go up and down is going to be based off how even that match was when the matchmaker made it. So there's going to be smaller adjustments, but you can expect much more. Yeah, you can expect much more consistent MMR gains and losses every single match from the first game you play of ranked to the 100th game of ranked.
Fascinating.
No more cheer with me. No more.
Yeah.
No, fascinating.
I see Twitter is cheering right now.
It will be for sure.
That was a huge problem that we talked about.
And the second big thing that we're doing to make sure that this feels good, especially in other modes, is we're actually going to be capping how much and how little you can get in MMR to make sure that in situations where the matchmaker does feel like it was really lopsided, potentially maybe like at like 2 a.m. on a work day in a region in a queue that has lower people in, and the only people that decided to queue up were the best and worst players in that match.
Shout out to my high-end Joust players, okay?
Yeah, we have situations to try and deal with those situations, but sometimes there's only so many people in the queue. In those situations, we actually have a min and max that can be applied there to make sure that you're not going to all of a sudden be only gaining 1 point for a really long time and then suddenly losing hundreds.
Cool, that's great.
That's going to be capped to make it more reasonable. So that's like the big matchmaking changes. Yeah, the other thing that we're doing with this
at a minimum and a maximum.
I like those.
Yep, which will help a lot with a lot of the major concerns that we've heard. The other big thing that we're doing is that TP and MMR, the way that we're going to be doing that this season is we're actually going to hard reset everyone. If everyone's been kind of match made differently and is going to get a whole bunch of hard reset.
I like a new season hard reset.
Happens. If people are going to be matched differently and going to rise and fall at a slower rate than before, we want to make sure that people who earned a really high ranking or got a very low ranking aren't stuck there artificially. We want to make sure everyone has an even footing to prove themselves at the start of the season.
Nice, man.
As well as we actually have some exciting news about ranked awards, which is that they're going to be actually immediately available and unlockable with 8.1.
That's cool.
So you can actually start out the ranked season rather than having to wait to the end of the season to get those awards. They're going to be available in 8.1. You can get them immediately. Just go play ranked.
So and the season 8 ranked reward skin.
Wow,
season 7,
why are you so loud now? What just happened?
Requirements will get when season when 8.1 goes live.
Wow.
But then as soon as you play enough matches, win enough matches in season 8, you'll be able to unlock the new skin as well, which could be potentially that same update if you really grind like that crazy amount of grinding. But people will do it probably.
Oh, most definitely.
Well, I'm up, guys.
Let's go ahead and start talking about these ranked rewards. So like you said, let's do the season 7 ranked reward. So everything that you've been playing towards this past year, it is going to be Midgardian Macaque. I hope I pronounced that right.
That was loud.
Bats. And this one is
scared the bejeebers
awesome.
out of me.
I gotta give a shout out to my guy, Raging Cajun from the community for providing the concept for this one. This card is awesome.
I love the style we see here. It's really cool.
Yeah, I know. AJ, you're a big fan of the Pantheon shift skins, and this is kind of taking Hunbats from the Mayan realm and making him a Norse warrior, which is awesome.
This goes good.
And this is also so Raging Cajun, a community artist, did this skin, and we contracted the art from him. But I believe he also was heavily advised by Duke Sloth on the creation of this skin because he was trying to get some feedback.
Awesome. You gotta love the collabs here. This was awesome, and the model turns out really awesome. I love kind of like the white fur and the hammer. Yeah, the runes are sick too.
That's
this
pretty
one
nifty.
Turned out great. I'm definitely looking forward to that. I gotta make sure I got my ranked wins going on. But let's go ahead and take a listen to the voice pack for this one.
And a battle approaches. Today, I will show all what honor means.
Oh, I love that. That one turned out super awesome. That is your Season 7 ranked reward, Midgardian Macaque Hunbat. But let's talk about the Season 8 ranked reward. And this one has been, floating around in the community for a long time. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of suggestions for this one. This is going to be Crash Test Yanis. And this one is so awesome. The card art is great. I just love that.
Oh my gosh.
Shout out to Racer.
That's hilarious. You got Apollo in the background. You've got the Racers references there. This is awesome. And I love like the portal kind of shatter effect with in the card art as well. This one turned out super sick, and I can't wait to see the model in game here, as we'll have a turnaround in just a second to give you guys an idea. Oh, this one is so good.
And he's wearing a helmet, so his faces can change, and his head rotates out from a different types of silly mannequin faces, which is hilarious.
Oh, that's amazing. This one is super awesome. Your Season 8 ranked
Gotta play ranked.
Let's go ahead and listen to the voice pack for Crash Test Yanis.
Gotta come join us in ranked.
Combat against godlike beings is not part of my design specifications. I will try to do my best.
That's all we ask you. I know, right? He just knows.
He's ready.
That's all we can ask.
He's ready to get ranked,
do your best, just like you guys, grinding out those rank queues in Season 8. Always do your best. All right, and then we've got the Season 7 commendation reward that we want to show off to you guys. So if you guys have been awesome and super positive figures in Smite and you haven't gotten any account level suspicions or bans, you'll be able to unlock Pure Heart Ganesh when 8.1 goes live for free. And I love these. I love how we always make them so clean and white. And Pon, what do you think of this one? This one looks great.
Oh, this one's so cute. Like, look at the chicks. That's awesome. I love these color schemes. Like, they're really cool on these characters.
I know, right?
I don't have any because my account got accidentally
the white and
banned.
gold, that's just such a classic color combination. Oh, this one turned out amazing. What do you think, AJ?
What better symbolizes the altruistically good Smite player than a Ganesh main? Like, this is the true support in the game, and I think it just fits the commendation reward great.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely looking forward to this one in 8.1 when this goes live. No voice pack on this one. It's just going to be an awesome, sweet recolor for you guys to get. And that wraps it up for all of the kind of new balance features, rank, Conquest Map stuff. But we do want to give you guys a quick little early look and talk about some of the things that we're planning for Season 8. We've got a huge roadmap that has a bunch of details and patch notes if you guys want to check it out. But I do want to take some time with AJ and Pond to just kind of hit the high level things. So we'll start with item reworks. We've got Mail of Renewal, Stone of Fall, and just an item effects pass overall. AJ, do you want to kind of just go through all of these individually and talk about what we're thinking about?
Yeah, so that was the 8.1 update notes we just did, but the rest of Season 8 has a lot still coming. So these are the things you're gonna see in future Season 8 updates. The first of which is new items. So we did this really big starter item change, which actually introduced a whole lot of new items to the game, but it didn't do a lot to add new items to other trees or to rework any items in other trees, like the traditional tier 3 items. So we wanted to make sure we still had a few of those that are high priority, specifically Mail of Renewal and Stone of Fall. Those have item reworks coming soon in the next couple of updates. And we're also going to be doing a close pass on our item visual effects. We want to make sure that items have a reasonable level of visual effects to match their effects and to match that they are, make sure that they're not overriding any sort of god clarity. So we're just going to do another pass on that. We have a few specific items we look at we want to tone down versus toning up some others, which should be a nice thing to help everybody understand what's going on in the battleground.
For sure. And then next up, we got remodels. Not one, but at least two coming your guys' way in Season 8.
We know they're redoing Sobek.
We're going to kick things off with everybody's favorite croc. Sobek is going to be getting a god remodel this season.
We know they're redoing Sobek.
Let's go.
Sobek is confirmed the next god getting a remodel. We are when you go read this patch notes and read the roadmap, a lot of things are phrased like this. We're committed to at least one more remodel in Season 8. Now that means we might get two. We're definitely going to do 2 remodels, so Sobek and one more. Possibly we could do 3. Hard to say right now, but we know we're doing those. Ares and Isis this year were absolutely beautiful, and players were so happy about it. So we want to just make sure we kept that ball rolling. And honestly, as a big Sobek main, it looks badass, and I just can't wait for everyone to see it.
Definitely. And then another thing that we see in the community all the time, we're going to be paying careful attention and making sure we show some love to some gods who haven't gotten skins in a long time. So people like Cerberus, Baron, Serket, Erling Shin, who's getting a skin we're going to talk about in just a little bit, Bamada, Jean Kui, lots of gods who haven't gotten skins in a long time are going to be getting some love this season.
Yeah, so you can check out the patch notes. I put very specifically who's getting a skin and who hasn't gotten a skin that is getting one, and I listed as many as I possibly could, and I tried to be as clear as possible about which ones we are already working on, or already making progress on, or already definitely happening.
All I heard was neath skin, neath skin, neath skin, neath skin.
We're really working hard to make sure that most of those gods that didn't get skin last year are gonna get it for sure this year.
Most definitely. All right, let's move on to events and modes. So Conquest got an awesome new, amazing, beautiful new map in 8.1, but we are also committed to at least one more map update this season, right, AJ?
Yeah, so not just the Conquest update, not just the new map of Conquest, not just the new living Conquest plan with more Conquest updates throughout the year, but we are also already working on one other non-Conquest map update. I can't get into too much specifics on what size or scope that map changes, but just know that we are working on some of those non-Conquest maps as well, and you can expect to see those throughout the year.
Most definitely. Cool. So much going on in Season 8, and one thing that you guys have been asking for a long time now, the return of clans coming back in Season 8. Now we're going to do this in kind of two phases here, AJ. So talk to me about clans and what's going to happen with them.
Clans are, a tricky system for us. That's why we had all the issues this year. We had a lot of core architecture that we wanted to change with clans. We had to bring them down entirely. We want to bring them back, but we're going to bring them back in two phases. The first one is essentially going to be the essential functions only. We're really having to pretty much build these back from scratch because we had some core issues that we had to fix, and that was the only way to do them. So you're going to see clans return in early Season 8. Well, not necessarily too early, sometime in between now and mid-season, where clans will return and you'll have the basic functionality to be able to create clans, talk to your clanmates, have a clan tag, etc. But then we are planning for further in the future, for late in Season 8 or even early of Season 9, where we want to make sure that clans has new UI, new features, and a new reward system. People want to be rewarded for playing with their friends, and they want to be rewarded for playing with a group of people at a consistent level, right? So that's something we're looking into doing further down the road.
All right. And then last up for the Season 8 roadmap, we've got a lot of UI updates planned. So we're going to be looking at things like the esports and live streams HUD, the purchasing experience in the store, the in-match experience, things like the item shop and the in-game HUD, which I know people have been asking for a long time, ranked UI, and plus many just smaller miscellaneous, just quality of life updates. We're always looking for ways to improve the UI. Tons and tons of going on here.
Right. The esports and live stream viewer store updates are all going to definitely happen in 8.2. We also have some updates to the purchasing experience. That's coming soon shortly after. Our biggest priority for our bigger item throughout the whole year is the in-game HUD and item shop update.
That'd be nice.
Don't have a specific timing on that yet, but that is going to be the main UI, almost like overhaul level change that we're doing for the year. That is our top priority, and that's what we're going to be looking at for the mid-season, so maybe towards the later half of the year, as well as just a whole lot of smaller things. The Olympians are always suggesting
nice, I mean, those are good
quality
changes.
of life features to us to adjust, add little things to different systems throughout the game, and we're going to try to commit to a consistent level of shipping those. If you go back and look at the patch notes for the last few updates at the end of Season 7, you'll see that we have a few of these items on every update, and we want to maintain that even around some of these bigger changes. We want to continue to maintain constantly improving with smaller updates.
Season 8 sounds good, man.
One more thing on this roadmap.
If they can live up to all these expectations that they're setting,
most definitely.
Season 8 is gonna be really good, man.
God reworks.
Like if they can really live up to this,
and we are willing to talk about two right now with it, and we're willing to say that at least two more are currently being planned, but not guaranteed yet. The first of which is a pretty big one that Pon is going to be leading up.
Interesting.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about, don't give away too much Pon, but the core goals for Persephone's
don't give away too much.
In early Season 8.
Yep. So Persephone has a lot of things going on that give her very high variance. For example, at top level play, no one ever really gets hit by the plants. At lower level play, plants can be very effective. There's a few things around our kit that create moments where there's a lot of very high power that's easy to confirm, and a lot of power that's just hidden behind a lot of difficulty.
She needs some sort of work.
So we want to do some changes to Persephone to make it so that when you play against her, you're going to feel less frustration fighting against her.
Good.
Her power is more evenly spread throughout her kit, and is more consistently accessible. And that's really what we want to focus on, is just making sure that the play experience as and play experience against is just a much more even level playing field.
She's too weird.
Well, you still have moments of expression. You can do some really fancy things.
Her she's like literally like the bottom win rate in the game or something. She's like genuinely like the worst win rate in the game, and she's one of the most like banned characters.
And that's going to be a pretty big rework,
which is hilarious.
We're going to be seeing big functionality changes to multiple abilities there.
She's just not fun to play against.
The abilities are completely new, but there are a lot of big changes, or at least one ability.
It doesn't even matter that she sucks.
Correct.
Nobody wants to play against her.
The other rework we are already working on is Bastet. I want to, level with the audience here. We didn't quite get the results we wanted to out of the last Bastet rework. We've done this type of thing before. Reworks are really hard. We set some really specific criteria for us to meet. You're trying to make the best of both worlds, not losing anything, not taking anything away, but still fixing all these issues and keeping core play styles. It's a lot to worry about.
Bastet's got to be the new Freya, dude.
We did this year did make her very strong in high rank Conquest. She became actually statistically much stronger there, but a lot of other people just felt like she wasn't that exciting. They didn't feel like there was a lot of cool, interesting interactions with her new ultimate. The ability
to be fair,
kind of idea
her kid's pretty
was not as exciting to the players as we
she
were
is actually good
internally,
right now,
honestly.
though. She's underrated.
We are looking into giving her another new passive and new ultimate and an ultimate that feels actually like a real ultimate ability. That'll be coming after Persephone, sometime before mid-season.
All right, well, guys, there was a ton to go over in 8-1. There's a ton to come in Season 8. There's so much exciting stuff to look forward to Smite in 2021. It's going to be absolutely amazing, but we still have a ton of amazing skins that we want to show off to you guys, too. We're going to take a quick break. Stick with us. We'll be right back.